For me, I'm gonna say for now, this is an overreaction. Buried him in the turf with his chin strapped around his nostrils. He calls a timeout. Good wherewithal by Eli. Great wherewithal.
Put this to music. I don't think he stepped out either. That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen.
Welcome to the Giant Overreaction. We got a ton to talk about today, y'all. The New York Giants, in a game where it looked like everything was absolutely against us. Chargers coming in at 3-0. New York Giants coming in winless. The Chargers favored by 6.5, even though the New York Giants were at home. An over-under of 43.5. I'm sure a lot of those points were not going to be credited towards our New York Giants. Desperate for a victory. With a new spark at quarterback, we knew that we had at least at bare minimum a small chance to go out there and win this game. I predicted a 3-point victory for the New York Giants. Actually predicted 27-24. The Giants win it in very similar fashion, 21-18 against the Chargers, man. What a impressive victory by the New York Giants. I mean, this was a game where when you looked at everyone on the NFL panel when they were picking who was going to win this game, there was literally not a single person that picked the New York Giants to win this game. And I told y'all on the Thursday preview show with the Beard here, big shout out to the Beard, that there's no way in hell a rookie quarterback that I scouted, went through the process, deemed him as the quarterback 2 coming out of this class, a guy that I thought could come in and be, I don't want to use the word savior like I heard Michael Strahan use on the broadcast before the game on Fox, but at least be a guy that could potentially be that franchise quarterback for the New York Giants. So this is a first time for me. But there was no way I was not going to pick the New York Giants. And it wasn't just that. I saw a couple of avenues that the New York Giants could take to possibly win this game, and one of them was limiting the Chargers from getting into the red zone. We wanted to force them to be able to try to stretch the field, and we did that early and often in this game. We're absolutely going to get to that. But the Giants were one of 6 teams coming into this game without a victory at all in the 2025 season. The Chargers were one of 6 teams that were still undefeated. And the Chargers were a lot of people's Super Bowl favorite after 3 weeks. They were one of the hottest teams coming into week 4. The 3rd team since 2000 to win 3 games versus divisional opponents to start the year. The Giants became the first 0-3 team to defeat a 3-0 team in exactly 17 years to the date. Yesterday's game was on September 28th. And on September 28th, 2008, the 0-3 Kansas City Chiefs went in and beat the 3-0 Denver Broncos. There was a lot going against us in this game, and normally these are the kind of games where you just feel like you got to chalk it up. It's going to be an L for the New York Giants. Jim Harbaugh coming in against rookie quarterbacks was basically perfect. He was 4-0 as the Chargers head coach. He was 8-2 in his career going up against rookie quarterbacks. Well, not no more. New York Giants go out there, they handle business. I celebrated last night for an extremely long period of time. I don't know if you guys were following the tweets. Shout out to Maria. Bought me a bottle of some whiskey, sat here after that game and just straight up swimming pools for my New York Giants because I was that impressed with this victory with both the coaches. You know, you look at Kafka, you could say all 3 of them because you could put Brian Dable, Mike Kafka, Shane Bowen all in one ball and say that all 3 of those coaches on this team had their back against the wall. And they went out there and they handled business. But you know, it's not like we got all good coming out of this game. Y'all know Malik Neighbors suffered that injury in the first half, and it did come out. Rap Sheet did report it. It's confirmed, y'all. Malik Neighbors has a torn ACL, and he is out for the year. And as New York Giants fans, we know all about this. We saw this happen with Odell Beckham Jr. We saw this happen before that with Victor Cruz when he tore the patella. And that's just bad news, and the bad news keeps piling up. Literally, right before I went on air for the stream, I decided to go check Twitter just one last time. And I saw that John Mara released a statement today. And this is what he had to say. He said, "I've recently been diagnosed with cancer and have been following the treatment plan recommended by an outstanding team of doctors. I'm feeling strong and optimistic, and I'm committed to seeing this through to a positive outcome. I plan to remain active with the team throughout my treatment, and I'm fortunate to be surrounded by incredible support personally, professionally, and medically, and he signed off John Mara. Now, that's just devastating news. And in my family, I won't get too personal, but I've had to deal with cancer in my family. And it not only does it take a toll on the person's body, it takes a toll on the people's families that are around them. So all we can do is just pray for John Mara. I know people have different opinions about John Mara being the owner for the New York Giants, but this is a very serious situation. I just encourage everybody to put John Mara in your prayers. And the one thing I can say is that, when you get that kind of news, that kind of bad news, you really look for those highs to be able to at least get a couple of smiles left because your life is on the line. And, man, this game on Sunday, I know for sure that John Mara was absolutely smiling from ear to ear after that victory, impressive victory from his rookie quarterback. So with that said, let's break down this game. Let's jump into it. Los Angeles Chargers travel to MetLife to take on our New York Giants.
They have, statistically, I think the hardest schedule in the NFL.
Breaking news to start NFL Live. The Giants are planning to start rookie Jaxson Dart.
I like the team. I like the chemistry. I like the leadership. We had a good training camp. We had a good spring. Now we're 2 weeks away. We have to go out and do it.
But the story in New York City right now is Cam Scataboo.
We got another good opportunity. Put that on the line. Dance on me. 1, 2, 3 times.
Get it blocked up. There could be an opportunity, Bob. Drop it back. Has time. Deep ball. Downfield.
All right, let's start off with the New York Giants defense, man. A very, very dominant performance by this unit that we all wanted to be that dominant unit for this team. When we were preparing for the regular season and going through the preseason, we felt that the New York Giants defense was going to be that front-running unit, and we really didn't get a chance to see that in the first two games consistently, I'll say. But the New York Giants came out right out the gate with a plan of attack and a plan to go out there and win this game, and that was get pressure on Justin Herbert, and they did a fantastic job of doing that. They forced 2 stops on the first 3 drives. It was punt, interception for the Los Angeles Chargers, and that's now 3 games that the New York Giants have gone through in the 2025 season where they have not given up an opening drive touchdown all year long, which is really great for us, right? In fact, in 2 of the 3 games, they've stopped the opposing team on the first 2 drives, and that's just giving your offense those opportunities early on in this game. And it was great to see with Jaxson Dart at the quarterback position that the New York Giants offense capitalized on some of those positions that we saw the defense put them in during the game. Now, creating takeaways, man, that's what we've been missing with this New York Giants defense for an extremely long time. We came into this game with just 1 takeaway on the season in the first 3 games. That was Andrew Phillips' interception against the Dallas Cowboys. We go out there and we get 2 takeaways in this game, and man, the first one was just absolutely amazing, seeing a big boy like Dexter Lawrence just rumbling down the field. It was unfortunate that he couldn't get in the end zone, but that interception was definitely a game-changing play. The Giants only came away with 3 points on that drive, and that's unfortunate. The red zone deficiencies from this team still continue to pile up. Not as egregious as it was when Russell Wilson was in the lineup, but we do only have a small sample size with Jaxson Dart just through this one game. You had the Drew Phillips interception, which was just the perfect technique that you want to see from your defensive back, going underneath on a switch release, beat the wide receiver to that play. You could see that studying the tape for Drew Phillips is paying off. That was a play that he likely had already seen on tape. Brian Burns was absolutely amazing in this game, and he's been amazing throughout the entirety of the season. He had 1 sack, 6 pressures, 3 quarterback hits, 2 quarterback hurries. The play that stood out for me was when the Chargers were driving to go ahead in this game, late in the game in the second half, and Brian Burns gets that sack on 3rd down, and he forces the punt for the Chargers. Just big play after big play from Brian Burns. And y'all know I was somebody who was extremely critical of Brian Burns in his first year here with the New York Giants because last season I kept on asking for more from Brian Burns. If we're going to be paying a guy $28 million a year to come here and support this defensive line, you got to find a way to get after the quarterback. And not to say that he didn't do that last year, but this is what I'm talking about when I was asking for more from Brian Burns. We are seeing that through 3 games. He's leaving it all out there on the field. Abdul Carter, he's absolutely a force. He's everything that we thought he was going to be. I know a lot of people had their reserves and their doubts about Abdul Carter being the next generational talent coming out of this draft. And for me, I thought it was either between him and Travis Hunter by the time we came to the finalization of the lead up to the draft process. And Abdul Carter's just been going out there and putting pen to paper. 9 pressures, 5 quarterback hits. He's still yet to see that first sack, 4 quarterback hurries, a pass rush win rate of 26.5%. He did have the big mistake before the half where he jumped off sides on the Deonte Banks interception. And boy, both of them needed that play right there. He's a rookie. He's going to make rookie mistakes, but he's already out there playing like a big dog. And that's what you want out of Abdul Carter. When you spend the 3rd overall selection on a guy like that, you want to see immediate results. And we've definitely seen that from Abdul Carter. Kayvon Thibodeau has just quieted all those doubters, man. Like going into the season, people were talking about using Kayvon Thibodeau as trade bait, all kinds of, just disrespect on that man's name because he was drafted 5th overall in the 2022 NFL draft. People feel like he has not lived up to that expectation. But through 4 games, Kayvon Thibodeau has been an absolute dog. I want to say he was top 10 in pass rush win rate from all edge rushers, along with Brian Burns in this past week 4. And within all the matchups, that was before we got to the Sunday night matchup. And obviously we got 2 games tonight, so that's yet to be determined. But 1 sack, 5 pressures on the day, 2 quarterback hits, 2 quarterback hurries. The Giants, as a team, had 27 pressures, 2 sacks, 14 hurries, and 11 quarterback hits. Now, it was not perfect. We do need to tackle better. We saw that in the secondary. Just you're seeing it from Tyler Nubin. You're seeing it from Paulson Adebo, Dane Belton. They all got to be better, especially Paulson Adebo. That's a guy that was paid to come here and be a front runner on this defense in the secondary and really has not – I won't call him like a liability or anything like that. I have seen a lot of Giants fans jumping the gun saying, oh, he's trash, da-da-da-da-da. I do think from the onset we overpaid Paulson Adebo, but that's what you got to do sometimes in free agency to land some of these players and get them to come to a destination that, previous to 2025 was not that – of an attractive destination in the New York Giants. But all these guys on the 2nd and 3rd level got to find ways to be better. Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo, y'all got to live up to the contracts, man. We paid y'all big money to come here and be dogs on this secondary. And so far, it's not like it's been bad, but it just has not been all that great. But with all that said, 41 attempts from Justin Herbert, and the defense allowed 186 passing yards to Justin Herbert. That's not that bad, y'all. We won on all 3 phases in this game, and I thought that one of the most important sequences of this game was in the 3rd quarter when Dart fumbled inside his own 5-yard line. He fumbled the snap, and Andrew Thomas saved us by recovering that fumble. So now we're backed up, and we're on our own 1-yard line. And Jamie Gillen, living up to that Scottish Hammer name, goes out there and boots a 69-yard punt, and then 3 plays later, Andrew Phillips comes away with the second takeaway of the game with the interception on Justin Herbert. To me, that was one of the most unsung sequences of the game. Like, a lot of people are pinning this victory solely on the defense, and I was encouraging people like, look, we don't always got to point the finger after every game. It's never going to be perfect. Maybe you get that one anomaly game where it's perfect, but at the end of the day, the defense had some ups, a lot of ups, and they did have some downs in this game as well. Offensively, same thing goes. But when you can get all 3 units playing a certain way where one hand washes the other and washes the other in this case, right? And you just find ways to win. You will your team to a victory. When you look at the second half, especially offensively, it was not all that pretty. But big shout out to Shane Bowen, man, who his back was on the wall. I could not find a New York Giants fan that was in support of Shane Bowen last week. And now I know a lot of people are saying, oh, this is kind of a fluke. You are still seeing that. There are some Giants fans that are just never going to be happy until this team completely turns the corner. I've been on record here saying that I'm going to be the last one to turn the corner. The more and more I start to see the way fans are acting on social media, I'm calling bullshit on my own take here, because I know a lot of people are going to wait until the final minutes when this team is finally good to say, okay, I've turned the corner. You still got people that are doubting Jaxson Dart, and that's understandable through just one game. But I think Jaxson Dart has done a lot. He's shown that he has that poise. He is in control of this offense. And in my opinion, it should really only get better. But when you get the support around the young quarterback, we've talked about the support for the veteran quarterback the last couple of weeks. When you can get that support around your young quarterback, it's going to speak volumes. And I think Jaxson Dart is the guy. I mean, he responded in this game in a major way. It wasn't pretty. At times, it was definitely ugly. But when you see a quarterback out there battling and fighting for his life without his wide receiver 1, who is basically his only weapon on this team, and he's going out there and he's getting the job done, you got to give him his props. That's how I view that. Before we get off into these Jaxson Dart numbers and some of these giant overreactions, I am going to try to keep this a pretty tight show. I got to help one of my homies move today, and I know what that's like. Y'all know I had to move just a couple of years ago, and it was treacherous. So I'm going to help the homie out today. We're going to try to keep this show nice and tight, but we'll see. I've said that before, and things definitely go a little bit past the over. So we'll see how that goes. But let's tap in with some of the people that dropped the super chats right off the bat, man. We appreciate y'all supporting the channel, and y'all know that we cannot do this without y'all. So let's just start there. Big shout out to my dog, Independent Outsider, in the building with the $10 or the $9.99 super chat. He said, always happy with the win, but we were helped out by an unhealthy Chargers offensive line. Saints will not be a pushover. We have to step up with our run defense. Don't underestimate Rattler's scrambling ability. I definitely agree with you on that. And although Rattler is 0-10 as a starter in his career, I mean, I think that's more of a reason to be weary about this game. The Giants are not walking into any situation thinking like, oh, we're just going to walk over a team. We are not that good of a team. We know that. I've continuously told you guys about the weapons that this team lacks and returning basically 10 out of the 11 starters from the offense. You could say maybe 9 out of the 11 now that Tyrone Tracy is dealing with that shoulder injury and you got Cam Scataboo out there, taking the duties of running back one. But this is not a team that anybody's looking at as, oh, we just got one victory over a really good team in the Los Angeles Chargers, so that means now that we're headed towards the promised land. I'm not ruling that out, but this is still the same offense. We are going to need multiple performances like we saw on Sunday to be able to get these kind of victories, even against a lackluster team coming in Week 5 like the New Orleans Saints. But this speaks volumes. This is the reason why we wanted to start Jaxson Dart against the Chargers, so that he could already be acclimated to the way Brian Daboll wants to run this offense and the speed of the NFL. We saw it from Jaxson Dart on Sunday. Doesn't seem to be too overwhelmed. And he did seem to be like, a quarterback that's going to go out there and do everything he has to do to go out there and try to put his team in the best position to win games. The Chargers were unhealthy up front. There's no doubt about that. But that doesn't take away anything from this victory for the New York Giants. They could have had me, Independent Outsider, Ralph, B-Rog, and Sebastian up there on the offensive line. You go out there and you win the game like this against a team that a lot of people are speaking as a Super Bowl contender. It's a big win nonetheless. But big shout out my dog, Dave Denton, rocking out with us today and helping us raise the bar one time. Shout out my dog, Ralph Fletch, just sending in the $1.99 super chat just off the strength, man. We appreciate that, man. Helps us raise the bar over here. B-Rog been consistently supporting us over here on the YouTube side of things, man. Big shout out to B-Rog with the $20 super chat. He says, I could complain about a few things here and there, but I won't. Finally, a win and a proud win versus a good Chargers team. I feel like we won the Super Bowl. I like how Dart made plays and Bowen made adjustments. Absolutely, man. It was a beautiful thing to see, man. And these were some of the things that we came to expect coming into this game, right? Like, I didn't expect a victory from the New York Giants, but I expected the offense to move a little bit better, keep us in this game, find ways to utilize Jaxson Dart's legs. And that's what Brian Daboll and this offense did, man. So big shout out to them. And I'm right there with you, B-Rog. Like, I saw people looking for things to complain about, but a win is a win is a win. It is the most important statistic in all of sports. And I'm just boosted for the New York Giants, man, like going out there and getting a win, like not against a team that, we looked at as, oh, man, we could, we should possibly beat that team. This was a tough Chargers team, and the Giants went out there and they handled business. So big shout out to them, and big shout out to B-Rog helping us raise the bar over here. Shout out my dog JD in the building one time with the $4.99 super chat. He says, on the flight back home, but what a game, bro. I was in section 109 right where our boy Dart ran in his first touchdown, and bro, awesome sight. Kid is fearless, man. That's a beautiful thing. My girl was reiterating something that we had talked about on the last, either the preview show or the Giant Overreaction. I'm not sure if it was you, JD, that was going out there for like your birthday weekend, but we had somebody in the chat that was talking about going out to the Giants game for their birthday weekend. And yeah, man, we wished you a victory. I hope that was you. And if it wasn't you, whoever that was, man, big shout out to you, because that's a great way to go out there. We all know that it takes a lot of hard-earned money to be able to travel from somewhere else to go to New York to watch these games and to be able to catch the first victory from Jaxson Dart, man. Beautiful thing, beautiful thing. Big shout out my dog JD for helping us raise the bar over here. Talking Eco was in the building one time with the $4.99 super chat. He said, glad about the win. Hope Neighbors has a full recovery, and also prayers to Mara. Fuck cancer, man. I know that's right, man. Cancer has definitely, destroyed a lot of families and a lot of lives out there. And it just seems like, although with the advancement of all the medical technologies and the knowledge that we have now, that just more and more people have been, victims of cancer. And it's unfortunate, man. So big prayers go out to Mara for sure. And Malik Neighbors, man, this is going to be tough, man. I don't know if you guys remember when OBJ had his second knee injury. I believe it was when he was with the Cleveland Browns. And he had a video that was documenting the whole entire process. Like, it was basically like the life of OBJ. And just seeing the kind of work that he had to go through, and the rehab that he had to go through. And then when you get back to not be 100%, we all know, we saw it with Saquon, man. The first year he got back just was not the same running back that we had came accustomed to seeing in the first two seasons. And I do expect that to be the same with Malik Neighbors. I'm not going to look at this like in Adrian Peterson type of recovery situation where Malik's going to come back and just be that dominant wide receiver one that we saw. You know, it hurts to know that he's not going to play the rest of the season, but even beyond that, it hurts to know that this is the first big, devastating knee injury of Malik Neighbors' career. And we all know, man, a lot of wide receivers just are not the same after the knee injuries. We saw it with Odell. We saw it with Juju Smith-Schuster. We've seen it with countless wide receivers. And all we can do is just pray for a speedy recovery, but more importantly, a positive recovery that allows Malik Neighbors to come back and be that same kind of wide receiver that he was in his rookie season and what we saw through 3 games here with the New York Giants in 2025. It's unfortunate. I've been trying to almost like just not let it settle in because it's devastating news. And, you know, the win kind of, just kind of clears up some of that the negative vibes that I would have had we have lost this game with Malik Neighbors. But it's devastating news regardless, man. It definitely hurts, man. But big shout out to Talking Eagle helping us raise the bar as well. And we got Door Gunner in the building. He says, congrats on the win. Sucks to hear about Neighbors. Absolutely, man. Appreciate you helping us raise the bar, Door Gunner. That's a Commanders fan who always rocks out with us over here on Authentic in the Beard. Big salute to my dog. Shout out Luis R. and the $50 I had to pay him one time for the Amarion Hampton over 150 yards, scrimmage yards. He wants to know if I want to double up the deal. We might have to do that, bro. I'm going to holler at you in the DMs. I had a bunch of people telling me I should not have made that bet, and through about 3.5 quarters, seemed like I was headed towards a clear-cut $50 victory. Instead, doesn't go down. Now we talking about tripling the bet here with Kamara, 150. I'll be in your DMs, man. Shout out to Luis for giving me $2 of my $50 back. I definitely appreciate it, my dog. And thanks for helping us raise the bar over here on Authentic in the Beard. I see the chat is absolutely booming today, man. Big shout out to all of y'all, man. I see the gang is in the building, man. We got a lot of people that want to celebrate this victory, and this is the first Victory Monday of the year. You got to bask in it. You got to enjoy it. We don't know how many of these we're going to get. We got one in the first start from Jaxson Dart, and it was absolutely a beautiful thing. And let's talk about it, man. Jaxson Dart went out there, and these statistics here don't look all that great, right? 13 of 20, 111 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, the biggest and best statistic on this entire stat sheet, 0 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 96. He added 54 yards on the ground. He had the 1 rushing touchdown, and he was sacked 5 times on the day. I've been seeing a lot of people talking about he was sacked 6 times. They forgot that Russell Wilson came in for a play, and he also got sacked as well. So pretty good performance from our rookie quarterback in his first outing. You know, loved seeing the score on the first drive. That's what you want to see from the New York Giants. We all too often do not score on our first drive. In fact, it was 8 straight games that Brian Daboll and this offense had not scored on an opening drive. So to see that was amazing. The dual threat mobility, all of those capabilities were absolutely on display in this game. You know, the narrative surrounding Jaxson Dart, as a prospect coming out of Ole Miss was that Dart didn't run a pro-style offense at Ole Miss. And I told people that, okay, he's not running a pro-style offense on every play, but a lot of the things that he is doing within that Lane Kiffin offense are going to translate to the NFL. A lot of people forget that Lane Kiffin was one of the, last coaches to turn the curve and adjust to the college game. He had a lot of old, just traditional schemes and philosophy that was surrounding his offense until he, really got to Ole Miss, to be honest. But you saw a lot of designed quarterback runs on Sunday from Jaxson Dart. You saw a lot of designed quarterback power runs. You saw a lot of quarterback draws. You saw a lot of screen run options and RPOs and read option and all that stuff that we saw him run at Ole Miss. I don't know why this is so surprising to people. And it's like this rhetoric hit the internet and everybody just wants to run with it. I'll tell you another rhetoric that hit the internet that a lot of people have been running with is that the New York Giants are playing soft zone on every play. Bobby Skinner's been doing some fantastic breakdowns on the New York Giants defense. I definitely recommend you guys go check it out. And we are not playing soft zone on every play. That is not the vibe. In fact, it's predominantly been not soft zone. So, it's just I always tell people that I don't have a large enough platform to spread a narrative, right? But the people that do have those large enough platforms that are spreading those narratives without the true data to back it, just be wary of that. Now, what I love from Jaxson Dart is just, like I said, this box score doesn't look all that great. And if you are somebody who only looks at box scores and you didn't look at the game, you would think Jaxson Dart didn't have a good game. But he was doing everything that he had to do to go out there and win this game. And Dart became the first quarterback to win his first career start against a team that was 3-0 or better in 23 seasons. Mark Bolger was the last guy to do that with the Rams, and he did that against the Oakland Raiders at the time when they were 4-0. The Giants had 99 rushing yards at the half, and half of them came from Jaxson Dart. He had that long 60-plus yard run that got called back. Jaxson Dart was just doing everything in his power to try to put this team in position to win. And he was doing all of that with a banged-up hamstring. We saw him limping right there before the first half, and that, continued to linger throughout the entirety of the second half. So, I just love the gutsy performance from this kid, and these were the things that we lacked from the previous quarterbacks, and just Jaxson Dart's pocket presence in this game allowed this offensive line to look much better than they actually played. And we didn't drop back that much. So, when I was looking at the pressures given up by the offensive line, they look great when you look at them from the first glance. But being that Jaxson Dart, only threw the ball 20 times on the day, it's not a super impressive performance by the offensive line. I thought it was an average performance, good enough to get the W. Andrew Thomas, 0 pressures on the day. John Runyon, 0 pressures on the day. JMS allowed 1 pressure. Van Roten allowed 2 pressures. Illuminor had the worst day of any of the offensive linemen, and that's very rare for Jermaine Illuminor, who has been, basically a solid foundation for the New York Giants at right tackle since he got here. But he ended up allowing 3 pressures on the day. Now, after the game, Jaxson Dart spoke to the media, and he had some really just professional things that he said. First thing, when he got to the podium, he commended Russell Wilson for the way that he pretty much conducted himself throughout this whole process, knowing how difficult that is for a quarterback to come in and be yanked after just 3 games. He also said he'd like to be a little bit more efficient in the passing game, creating a few more explosive plays. They had a really good plan for us, so you've got to give them a ton of credit, which is absolute facts from this game. But when you see your quarterback go out there, not pointing the finger, unless it's at himself, and really speaking to things that when you look at the broadcast, you could see throughout this game that Jaxson Dart obviously needed to try to create more explosive plays, especially with the pass attack, and we did not have that in this game. The other thing was the red zone. The Giants need to find ways to finish in the red zone. And I know a lot of people are, for lack of a better term, bitching about the play calling that is happening within the red zone. But I thought in this game that Brian Dable and Mike Kafka did a good job in the red zone. They just played better in the red zone against us. Now, first half, the New York Giants were 1 for 3 in the red zone, 2 for 5 in the red zone on the day, but they entered this game 2 for 10 in the red zone. So, you're doubling up the percentage that you came into this game with, and I'm okay with that. There was a key red zone moment in this game, too. 21-18 with 5 minutes left in the game, and the Giants get down there in the red zone, and they go for it on 4th down. And Jaxson Dart does a good job buying time, kind of shifts to his left to make it look like he's about to run to the left, and then darts back to his right and bought some extra time. These are the type of things that, the modern dual threat type of quarterbacks bring to a modern offense, and that's why Jaxson Dart, in my opinion, is the guy for the job moving forward, and also gives us an opportunity to have a true franchise quarterback in the building. Now, he puts the ball on Wan'Dale Robinson. I thought that it was a little bit too much like lollipopped, just a little bit, a little bit too much air on it. I thought he could have maybe put a little bit more zip, maybe used an arm angle to the side to get the ball past the defender that was in front of him and get the ball to Wan'Dale Robinson. But nonetheless, I do think that it was a difficult catch, but it was a drop by Wan'Dale Robinson that really could have sealed this game. But I thought that, all in all, Dart in the red zone played pretty decent. 2 for 4 passing in the red zone for 9 yards. 1 touchdown, 1 sack, 1 rushing touchdown. It's much better than what we saw from Russell Wilson, which in the 3 games, Russell Wilson was 4 for 20 for 16 yards. So I'll take it. You just want to see improvement. Again, Rome was not built overnight, right? Like, there are things that Joe Schoen and Brian Dable are going to have to slowly implement. When we talk about personnel being added to this offense, when we talk about wrinkles being added to the playbook as well, you can't expect it all to just be there in Jaxson Dart's first start. This was a very, very, very conservative game plan that reminded me a lot of a Jason Garrett game plan back in 2021 against the Raiders, where we really barely threw the ball. We scored on the opening drive with a fade touchdown to Evan Ingram on the right side. And then from that point on, we literally just ran the ball with Saquon Barkley and with Daniel Jones throughout the rest of the game. We controlled the clock as we did in this game. I don't got the time of possession numbers right in front of me, but I know the New York Giants dominated the time of possession. Sometimes a victory calls for a game plan like what we saw from Brian Dable in this game on Sunday, and I got to commend it. It was a great game plan. The second half offensively was not all that great. 4 punts, 1 turnover on downs, 1 touchdown. But all in all, the Giants did everything in their power to keep Justin Herbert on the sidelines, and I thought that Brian Dable did a good job with his back against the wall, down 0-3 in a must-win spot against a team that you knew was not going to give it to you free, Brian Dable and his coaching staff went out there and they won this game in an impressive fashion. I mean, against a team that is just, you're going to see that team in the playoffs. And we're talking about one of the better quarterbacks in the entire National Football League. So it was a major victory in my opinion. And, I'm not going to dive through this game like too in depth because there are some things that you got to go back to the drawing board and you absolutely got to find a way to clean up. But coming out of that game with a victory, you couldn't ask for more, and we all knew if the Giants were going to win this game, it was going to be a bit of an ugly game. And that's what we saw on Sunday. I'm not mad at it. Today, I want to kind of get to the Giant overreactions a little bit quicker today. So we are going to get off into the first Giant overreaction here in a second. And I want to use the Giant overreactions to be able to address a couple of points that I want to talk about from the coaching staff, from the running game, from the defense, from the quarterback. And then we'll get y'all up out of here. Like I said, I want to try to keep this show nice, short, sweet, and tight, especially for my folks that are going to be rewatching this one. I see a bunch of gang is in the building, man. Shout out to all of the New York Giants family and everybody that's been supporting what we do over here on Authentic in the Beard, man. It's very refreshing when I get to come up here and talk about a victory. It just makes it feel that much better. And it almost feels like you're riding the same treadmill or bicycle when you come up here and you have to talk about a loss. And it's like, as my dog Pal from Bleacher Report would say, another day, another loss. He was the first person to pop in on my Bleacher Report stream when we did the recap yesterday after the game. And he said, another day, another dub. And that just feels great. And I actually been taking that saying that Pal would pop in on the Bleacher Report streams and tell me. And I've been saying that to Coach Loxley every time Maryland gets the victory as well, because I'm just rooting for Coach Lox. I'm rooting for Maryland. I know this ain't a Maryland channel and whatnot, but still, we have yet to have an African-American head coach win a national championship on the collegiate level. And I'm not saying the Maryland Terps are going to do that this year, but I'm rooting for Coach Loxley to be that first person to do that. Last year with Notre Dame, we almost had it. But I know a lot of people will look at, certain circumstances surrounding African-American coaches like that and think that it's maybe irrelevant or, something that shouldn't be talked about. But that's something for me as an African-American that, I pride myself on that. And I would love to see Coach Loxley doing that while we're documenting him behind the lens. It'd be a beautiful thing. But let's get off into this first Giant overreaction. We're going to have, I want to say we got 3 of them on the day today. Definitely looking forward to talking about all of these. Let's see where we want to start at. With the Malik Neighbors injury, let's go ahead and start with the wide receiver unit. Y'all know that this is a topic of discussion that everybody has been talking about since Malik Neighbors went down with the injury. So let's go ahead and get off into the first Giant overreaction of the day. All right, so this one comes from your boy Authentic. I said, I might be the only person on this app who thinks it's not in the Giants' best interest to trade for a wide receiver. Now, the news did come out. Ian Rappaport reported that Giant star wide receiver Malik Neighbors does, in fact, have a torn ACL. The MRI at the hospital for special surgery confirmed he's out for the season. That just is devastating. Malik Neighbors' 2025 season ends with 18 receptions, 271 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And it really felt like Malik Neighbors was off to a better start this year than he was last year and was going to find a way to be able to prove me right in one regard, where it was all about getting Malik Neighbors higher quality of targets and not higher quantity of targets. But big prayers go out to Malik Neighbors on his recovery. It's going to be a major uphill climb, man. But do we really want to trade for a wide receiver? And really, who would it be? And what are you going to use to trade for a wide receiver? Now, for those of y'all that don't know how the Giant overreaction works, when you see this statement on the screen, if you agree with this statement on the screen, then you want to put a U in the chat that represents you're taking the under. If you think that the statement on the screen is an overreaction and you disagree with that statement, you need to put an O in the chat to represent that you think it is an overreaction. This isn't one where you necessarily would need to take the push, but if you need to take the push and you're just undecided, you can put a P in the chat to represent that you're going to be taking the push. Now, for me, the Giants have 7 picks in the 2026 NFL draft. They have no third-round pick currently either. It's a first, a second, a fourth, a fifth, and 3 sixth-rounders. The only true valuable trade pieces that the New York Giants have currently on this roster would be on the defense. But we're looking at 4 weeks of this unit starting to galvanize, starting to build chemistry. We don't have depth pieces on this defense that you can trade. I would not trade any of these pieces. Kayvon Thibodeau, absolutely not. even guys like Chauncey Golston that have been dealing with injury, I'm not trading players like that. Offensively, you don't got many players you could trade. I think maybe a Wan'Dale Robinson might be possibly a trade candidate, but how much are you going to get back for a Wan'Dale Robinson? In any situation, you're probably going to have to pair that with some of the New York Giants draft picks. And then you got to just think about what wide receivers are out there via trade right now. I haven't heard any wide receivers around the NFL that teams are looking to trade. We heard Jacoby Myers early on in the year. I don't know if that's still something that's an option that's possibly on the table or not, but are you going to give up maybe a day 2 pick and some change for Jacoby Myers? I don't think I'm ready to do that right now, especially. I view it like this, y'all. If the Giants were going to trade for a wide receiver, why wouldn't you do it when Malik Nabers was healthy? So that way you could really, truly see what the quarterback, how he could operate with 2 great weapons on the outside. And then Darius Slayton would become your wide receiver 3 when you're talking about the outside. I think that waiting for Malik Nabers to go down with an injury really makes no sense to bring in or to trade for a wide receiver. But I do think it's important that you got to at least bring in another wide receiver, whether it be signing a free agent or bringing in another practice squad guy. If it's free agents, I mean, there's not really many viable options out there right now. You got OBJ. You got Deontay Johnson, who I think might be the best from a skill set perspective, maybe the best free agent wide receiver that's still out there right now. You still got Allen Robinson, who is familiar with Brian Dable's offense, and he did have a little bit of productivity in the preseason last year before he was ultimately cut. You got Gabe Davis, but I feel like if Gabe Davis was a guy that the Giants were going to bring in, he would have already been brought in. He's currently on the Bills practice squad right now. And, you know, from a plug that I had been talking to on Twitter through DM, Gabe Davis came into the year dealing with an injury. He did say he was going to be healthy, but I don't understand why Gabe Davis would still be on a practice squad right now if that was the case. Ultimately, I do think it's going to be Lil Jordan Humphrey that gets elevated from the practice squad. But there is an opportunity here for some of the other wide receivers to step up. Darius Slayton has experience being the Giants wide receiver 1 basically for his entirety of his career outside of 2024 in the first 3 games of this season. So maybe Darius Slayton is a guy that's going to have to, you know, return back to his old ways and you know, inherit that name that I gave him a long time ago again, which is old reliable, and become the New York Giants wide receiver 1 for the remainder of the 2025 season. He only had 3 receptions on the day yesterday, but they were pivotal. I mean, these were like receptions that kept drives alive and kept drives going on 3rd down. He had 44 yards, and that led us. Wan'Dale Robinson's another guy that's got an opportunity to step up here, but I felt like Wan'Dale Robinson was a guy that benefited from having Malik Nabers out there on the field, and I'm not going to expect too much from Wan'Dale Robinson moving forward. I think he can still be the same caliber of player that we saw in the first 4 games of the season, but just 3 receptions for 14 yards after Malik Nabers went out in this game, that's just not enough. Now, a homie on Twitter said this to me. He said, hate that I have to use this team as an example, but CeeDee Lamb went down and the Cowboys are just fine because they acquired a good second wide receiver who stepped up. And he's basically telling me that because Malik Nabers has this injury and he thinks that it would be in the New York Giants' best interest to go out there and trade for a wide receiver so that we can copy the formula that the Dallas Cowboys put forth out there last night in a great effort for a victory that ultimately ended up being a tie against the Green Bay Packers, where their offense was able to move in a major way with George Pickens stepping up as the wide receiver 1. Now, my response to him was, the Cowboys are in the middle of a championship window closing. I said championship window, so don't get it fucked up. It's why they made the move in the first place to go out there and get George Pickens. Don't forget it, y'all. Anytime you have a question about the New York Giants and the way that they are performing, don't forget that they are in the middle of a rebuild. As much as people want to say Joe Schoen is in his 4th year as the Giants general manager, and we should not be in the middle of a rebuild with a general manager entering year 4, I just encourage y'all to not forget what happened the first 2 years when Joe Schoen was here. 2022, you come out there, you're cleaning up all the cap bullshit that was left behind from Dave Gettleman. You didn't really have an opportunity to rebuild because the Giants didn't have any money. The second year, you go out there after winning a playoff game. You win 9 victories on the season and a tie. And you start to think that maybe this team is ready to compete. So let's go ahead and try to put the pieces around Daniel Jones. And in the next 2 seasons, you saw that happen. Bringing in guys like Darren Waller, bringing in pieces to patch up this offensive line after trying to rely on youth in 2023, and that not working, and Daniel Jones ultimately being injured and out for the rest of the season. So the whole commitment to the rebuild in the first 2 years got fucked up. That's just what happened. Now, we got to fault Joe Schoen for some of that, for poor drafting in the first 2 drafts, maybe even the first 3 drafts, maybe the entirety of these drafts, because we don't know how these players are going to pan out. But at the end of the day, after 2 seasons, they finally had to commit to the rebuild. And really, I think that 2025 is the first season that we are viewing that we're looking at the New York Giants through Joe Schoen's lens of being a guy that had to, that he was forced to commit to the rebuild. I thought he's doing a fantastic job thus far when you look at the offseason from 2025, the draft, when you look at free agency, bringing in Holland, bringing in Adebo, Chauncey Golston, bringing in added pieces on this offensive line that didn't pan out in James Hudson, Stone Forsythe. But all in all, I thought that Joe Schoen is now headed in the right direction, and the Giants and the Cowboys are in 2 totally different places. The Cowboys are looking at that window that is closing right before their eyes and, being put in a position where they can't pay players. And next year, don't forget, George Pickens is up for a new contract. Are the Cowboys going to have enough money to be able to go out there and re-sign and retain a guy like George Pickens? It's possible. I mean, if it's in their best interest, they're going to do it, but money is absolutely a thing. And when it comes to the New York Giants, don't forget that currently right now, the New York Giants have the least amount of money when we're talking about salary cap. So going out there and trading for a wide receiver, in my opinion, does not make any sense right now. So let me see what the chat is talking about. I'll just scroll back just a couple here and just kind of get the general theme. J.J.R. Vicious says OBJ over Deontay Johnson. I got no pushback on that. Like, OBJ would bring better vibes too. Deontay Johnson has had his fair share of run-ins with coaching staffs, and you can't forget the whole Baltimore situation where they asked him to go out on the field and he was basically like, I'm not going, and you don't want to bring that here to the New York Giants, who are trying to rebuild the culture right now, and I really feel like they're doing a good job of doing that. Notice no one's really talking about the culture this year, which is a good thing. But I got no pushback on the OBJ vibes. B-Rog says it's an overreaction. I think teams will now stack the box and will play the Giants wide receivers 1 versus 1. I don't feel receivers have done a good job creating space, slants not included. We need a clear wide receiver 1. I think that is a plan for the future. I've been making comparisons to when the Philadelphia Eagles gave the keys to the offense to Jalen Hurts in his first year as a starter, where when you look at the wide receivers that they surrounded him around, it was Travis Fulgham, Greg Ward, and then they drafted Devonta Smith to see if he could be that potential wide receiver 1. And I think that they knew that Devonta Smith could have been a wide receiver 1. But that necessarily didn't move the needle. But they were able to evaluate Jalen Hurts as a quarterback moving forward. And although a lot of people, especially in the Giants fan base, thought that after Jalen Hurts' first year as a starter, he was not a viable candidate to be a franchise quarterback moving forward, if you've been paying attention to what me and the Beard have been doing over here, we've been Jalen Hurts, truthers, I'll say, since he got his first start. He won 8 games with that roster as well, and they did have the offensive line in place, which is a little bit of a different situation than the New York Giants. But, all too often when you don't know if you have that guy at the quarterback position and you try to surround him with pieces and try to bring in those wide receiver 1s and try to bring in that talent around that particular quarterback, if it doesn't work, the fingers will be pointed at the general manager. You can look towards the Tennessee Titans as a great example in that. Rand Carthen, the former general manager for the Tennessee Titans, who I thought did a good job. And I can support both sides of the coin. Like, if you want to just, full house, throw all the weapons out there and try to get the offensive line bolstered up for your potential franchise quarterback, which in their case was Will Levis, I'm not going to give you much pushback. At the same time, if you want to try to find out what you have at the quarterback position by seeing how he can perform in less than ideal circumstances, I'm okay with that as well too, because you do want to know he's the guy. But also you can't pull a Daniel Jones and wait, until this guy's in his 3rd, 4th year before you decide to really build around him and put the weapons around him. But I think that when you have question marks around your quarterback that say, maybe this isn't the guy, maybe this isn't the franchise guy, which in Daniel Jones' first 3 seasons, there were definitely those question marks. I think it makes that job of a general manager that much more difficult. But the urgency to get a wide receiver 1 for me is something that the New York Giants need to add in the future, which would be the wide receiver 1B, if Malik Neighbors can come back healthy. But for me, I don't think that, unless the right situation presents itself, I don't think the Giants are in a position to go out there and trade right now. No money, How are you going to pay for it? The question mark surrounding Malik Neighbors coming back after the knee injury, is this really the window? Do you guys think we have the Super Bowl window right now ahead of us during Jaxson Dart's rookie contract? I might give you guys some pushback on that and say no, because we got to find out who Jaxson Dart truly is through this next 14-game or 13-game evaluation, and then after that, you're going to have to clean up a lot of the mess that you brought in during the Daniel Jones rebuild, I guess we can call it, because Jermaine Illuminor, John Runyon Jr., a lot of these Aaron Stinney's, Greg Van Rotens, these guys, JMS is another guy that, in my opinion, is not going to be here when the New York Giants are going to be competing for championships. So this rebuild is in a tough place because of what happened the first 2 years. And in my opinion, I don't go out there and try to trade for a wide receiver unless the perfect opportunity presents itself. I try to address the New York Giants wide receiver issues through free agency and through bringing in some guys and elevating some guys from the practice squad and seeing how that goes. You can't forget, too, that we have a nice buffer before we get to the trade deadline where teams will be, buyers or be sellers. And hopefully, in our case, if we do want to trade for a wide receiver one, you get the right seller. Shout out my dog to Illa one time in the building. He says, I don't give a damn what he did yesterday, but again, with Neighbors going down, this is exactly why we should have drafted Adonai Mitchell over Tyler Nubin. He ain't going to get no pushback from me. And yeah, mistakes happen on the football field. We saw that from A.D. Mitchell yesterday where he tried to switch the ball into his right hand so that he could basically go into a high step celebration kind of a situation and switching the ball. That's something that, most people don't ever lose the ball like that. Normally when you see somebody lose the ball going across the end zone line, they're trying to reach, and then they lose the ball right before the pylon and then it'll bounce out the back of the end zone. It was unfortunate. And especially for Daniel Jones, I thought that the momentum, he had the early interception in that game, but if you get a touchdown there, I thought that the momentum for the Colts would have been major right there. And to me, that was what spiraled that game out of control for them and ultimately ended up losing the game. The Rams ended up coming back with 14 unanswered points after that, man. So, yeah, unfortunate. And I don't hold like one play over somebody's head. I'm with the Illa on this one for sure. Simeon Toko says that Bo Collins has to step up. I agree with you on that as well. Let's see. This is Restra Dapper. I'm going to call you Rez for the day. I know I'm butchering the enunciation on that. He says, Sunshine played his ass off. Let's keep getting these wins and strong vibes going. Go Big Blue. Absolutely. Shout out my dog, Diggy in the building, man. Salute to another Giants content creator, another content creator that's raising that bar. Big shout out my dog. He said, okay, he's on the practice squad. Mike says it's trade, not pick up. Facts right there. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets, says Montrell for sure. That's another guy. Montrell Washington could be a guy. He was a guy that had that yak ability for sure, for sure. Christian C says at least he didn't tear his MCL2. That's facts. Problem says he's taking the under. Not sure what we'd give up and what quality receiver we could get. Now that Neighbors is gone, teams will take advantage of that and up the price. That's very true. Christian C said Jalen Waddle. That's a guy that, I think matches the timeline. And if the Miami Dolphins are foolish enough to want to trade him, Steven Arce has been talking about trading for Jalen Waddle for a long time, and I wouldn't say no to that. It all depends on what kind of capital you'd have to give up for a guy like that, because if it has anything to do with a second-round wide receiver or day two wide receivers, I don't know, man. It'd be a tough decision to make because there are going to be a lot of day two wide receivers, and this draft coming up is going to have some wide receivers definitely in it. Berg says he's taking the under as well. Don't give up assets for a bandage this year unless you absolutely think the guy can be a wide receiver too for the foreseeable future. Damn, I almost want to just leave this topic right there, Bergs, because that's a great way to describe that. It's like if you can't trade for a wide receiver option that you would have traded for in the beginning of the year that can help this team, not this season, but in the future, then go ahead and do it. This is worded extremely well, bro. Hodges is in the building, says, I was going to say we were probably just going to move up Washington. Not mad at that. Love that right there. JW says we definitely need a wide receiver too this offseason. Agree with you. I thought we could have addressed it in the draft, but they decided to go a different option, and Rome wasn't built one day again. No Met says Slayton looks like he's in a bad marriage. Why did the boy resign? I agree with you on why did he resign. He needed a new environment and just a restart, just a fresh restart, and the Giants weren't going to give him that. But I haven't had a chance to go and look at all the tape today. I glanced at some of the offensive snaps and did see that Jalen Hyatt, really was on the field for a little bit in this game, but just didn't get no targets. I mean, he was on the field for 30 plays, 15 pass plays as well, and he got 0 targets in a game where Malik Neighbors was out for 3/4 of the game. I think that a lot of that had to do with not being able to pivot the entire game plan after losing Malik Neighbors. You don't plan to do that. So I do expect Brian Dable and Mike Kafka to go back to the drawing board this week and try to find ways to scheme up Slayton and scheme up Jalen Hyatt if he's going to be the other wide receiver on the outside as well. I think Wando Robinson, his role is likely going to remain the same. But definitely agree with that. And No Mets also said we need a wide receiver one this offseason. Yeah, a lot of people agreeing with that. That's definitely the vibes. B-Rog said maybe you don't go and get him now. If you're talking about getting that wide receiver, I do agree with you on that because unless it's the perfect opportunity, if you see something like a Jalen Waddle, that's a guy that I would trade for. Tyreek Hill, on the other hand, I don't know if I would trade for a Tyreek Hill. And it's not to say Tyreek Hill is washed or anything like that. He's still extremely capable getting in and out of those breaks faster than probably anybody in the entire league. But right now, we are not in that position let's say, the Washington Commanders were last year where they had the wide receiver one on the roster in Terry McLaurin, and they just needed to upgrade the wide receiver two position and try to make that true push to try to get another championship and try to get a trophy in the case over there in Washington. So I just view us a lot differently. Let's see. Christian C said second for Waddle, especially after they lose tonight. I hear you on that. I'm going to be keeping my eyes on them. They're going to be scratching for a victory. Simeon said, this team is not contending for anything. Don't trade assets. That's how I feel right now as well. Jay Fed said Slayton signed for the money. Not sure another team was interested. I do think Slayton could have went out there and got some decent money. I thought the Atlanta Falcons were the perfect candidate for Darius Slayton because he's from Atlanta. I thought that would be a great move for him, and they lack, a true wide receiver two over there. Darnell Mooney kind of trying to, play that role, but now dealing with some injuries as well. And I just thought Slayton would be a better fit for them. The Illa said, I ain't going to lie. Who I'd like to have right now, a healthy Darren Waller. I'd take him over Odell all day long, just my opinion. I just don't know where Odell is at this point in time in his career. I got to see some workouts with the route god, and he looked like, definitely not the same wide receiver that we saw here in New York in his first tenure, but and same goes for Darren Waller, just came in with the Miami Dolphins situation where we traded him over there. He was on the PUP list. Excuse me. And tonight's going to be a big night. He's going to be finally active, and I do expect to see him on the field. I'm going to be keeping my eyes on Darren Waller. But, the way things transpired through the fake rebuild, we'll call it the Band-Aid for Daniel Jones, and having Darren Waller retire and just not being happy over here, that really hurt us as a team because we've continued to address the tight end position every year. And if you had a Darren Waller on this roster with a Malik Neighbors, and then you were trying to address that wide receiver too, and you had Jaxson Dart taking over as QB1, and I'm just going to throw this one out there too, with Saquon Barkley in the backfield, okay, then we could be talking about trading for a wide receiver too, not even after the Malik Neighbors injury. We could be talking about that pre the Malik Neighbors injury, and this offense would be looking like it's ready to fucking go. Instead, things didn't go our way. Darren Waller retired. Saquon Barkley, we lost him in free agency. It's tough, and now Malik Neighbors down with this injury. We're in a shitty position that, in my opinion, I don't think we're going to be ready to compete for another, at least bare minimum 2 years. But I'd say it's probably going to be, a possibility where I'm taking the over on 3 years. J. Jarvicious said, if Dart thrown that pass to Theo and not Wandale, it would have been a touchdown. I got to go back and look at the all-22. I think I remember what play you're talking about. But I do want to go back and look at, the eye in the sky. I think that's the greatest way to look at football. And as soon as I get off this stream, hopefully I could take about an hour before I help the homie move and go check out some of that all-22. Brownie said, I need to see Dable and Shane use the players they drafted and traded up for. Time to see what these coaches got. Develop the players you drafted. Shit's ridiculous. No pushback from me. Zani says it's an overreaction. Who are you going to get that's better than Slayton? The answer is nobody. We were lacking weapons when Neighbors was healthy. If we didn't add a wide receiver then, why make it now? So Zani's really saying that he's taking the under, not the overreaction. Marjorie says, you, not O for me, no trade. I'm with you on that. Obviously, is my post on the screen. Kristen C said they didn't trade for one before because Joe Shane is a cheap bastard. Yeah, and I mean, you look at the 3 previous off seasons, the New York Giants have been top 10 in spending. And they just don't really got much money right now, so it's going to be tough. Simeon Toko said he's taking the under, next man up. Save your assets to build the offensive line in next year's draft and the weapons. Yeah, that's a good point right there. Dinka Kong, that's a new name in the building. What's going on, Dinka? Hope all is well. He said addition by subtraction. Spread it out. Dart don't care. Yeah, and that's another thing nobody's really talking about. Like, Dart can elevate these players. And listen, you know, in one regard, I got to give props to Daniel Jones in his 2022 season where he did it. He went out there with Darius Slayton, Richie James, David Sills, Marcus Johnson, Isaiah Hodgins, and he got it done. Let's see what our rookie quarterback can do here. And I think this is a good way to evaluate the quarterback and, you know, just not in an ideal situation. Shout out to Antoine. Giants do exist. He said, when we brought in Darren Waller, we got to be honest. We got a guy who was a shell of his former self. Yeah, but Darren Waller was still producing with the New York Giants. When Darren Waller got injured in that, I want to say it was the Week 7 matchup against the New York Jets that year, the rain game, and where we ran the ball for every play in the second half, Darren Waller was leading all tight ends in the NFL in receiving yards. Darren Waller, truly, John Gruden is the only guy that really got the best out of Darren Waller in those 2 seasons where Darren Waller went over 1,000 yards and he had the highest amount of touchdowns in his entire career. So I don't know about a shell of his former self, maybe not at that same caliber that we saw from him with the Las Vegas Raiders, but he did come into the New York Giants situation banged up with an injury. But I don't know. When I hear that term, like me and my homie, we play Xbox Apex Legends a lot, and like our threshold for damage is about 1,000, you know, and I make a joke where I always say I'm 1,000 authentic. I'm a give you to 1,000. And when I get down to like 100 or 200 damage, which is fucking terrible in Apex, all right, then we can say, you know, I'm playing like a shell of myself. Maybe just the wrong term on this one, Antoine. I don't think that Darren Waller was the same player that was over there with the Raiders, but I do think he was a major contributor in an offense that was basically focused around him. When you talk about the way that defensive coordinators had to come out and game plan against the New York Giants, it was basically stop Saquon and stop Darren Waller. That's basically what it was that year. Ramdre81 says he's taking the push. If we were 2-2, I could see it. At 1-3, would you allow a regime that could possibly be fired to trade assets? Man, that's a great point right there. That's a great point right there. I don't got to add nothing to that. That's a great point. J. Jarvis doubling down. Says Waller was leading tight ends in receiving yards before he got hurt. Yeah, Waller was a dog. He was definitely a dog. Let me see. This is the Op Graveyard, I think is what it is. It's a new face in the building, man. Shout out to Op one time. He says prayers for Mara and neighbors. Absolutely, bro. My dog, NY Giants fan 48, said he's taking the push. He said sign Odell Beckham Jr. A lot of people want that right now. I'm not going to give you no pushback on that. Christian C said, what did Dallas trade to get Pickens? Remind me. I'm not too sure. Maybe somebody in the chat got you by the time I scroll down here. I want to say it wasn't nothing too crazy, to be honest, because he was entering the final year of his contract. So I'm not 100% sure. My guess would be like a fourth maybe. Somebody got you on it. I don't want to take away from the show and look it up right now. JDJ is in the building, says he's taking the under. Also, I don't know if you remember, but when we were winning in 2022 in Dable's first year, a lot of fans thought wide receiver was a big need, but Shane didn't pull the trigger at the trade deadline. That's true. It was Jerry Jeudy at that time. I remember that very well. Definitely remember that very well. Antoine said, just don't want Jaxson Dart to feel like he has to do it all and ends up getting hurt. He took a lot of hits this game. That's a good point, too. You know, if I am going to get some pushback, that's a great point right there. Marjorie said, the New England Patriots always use their tight ends. We could use our tight ends and more play calls. That's true. I also think this. A lot of people have been alluding to Brian Dable and Mike Kafka, you know, need to use more 12, more 13 personnel. I'm going to say that the New York Giants maybe need to use more 11, more 10, spread it out a little bit. You know, with Jalen Hyatt and Darius Slayton on the outside, if you can't get the ball to them down the field, I think another option would be to just spread things out and have Jaxson Dart run those quarterback draws from 4 wide receiver sets, 3 wide receiver sets. I think that's another way to generate yards. And Jaxson Dart is just going to have to be cautious with how he runs the ball and obviously not getting down to some – like, man, when he had that big run, you know, he roughed the one defender, you know, told him it's a big boy league, roughed him. Got another like 30 yards, and then when he went to go stiff arm that guy that was in front of him, It eerily reminded me of the play in preseason that he fumbled on, where they took him to the blue tent. He's so focused on the man in front of him, he's forgetting about what is in the rearview mirror. You know, when you driving, sometimes you could be on a highway and you could fly by a car let's say you in the left lane. You could fly by a car in the middle lane, and your peripheral and just gauging what you just saw will let you know how far ahead of that car you are. Jaxson Dart got to know that, and that's 2 times now that we've seen that, where he gets past the defender and he's not thinking about the pursuit from the other defenders that he's already passed. And in this game, he was fortunate. I love how he went for that aggressive stiff arm. He didn't get the best of it, but you got to watch out for those guys in your rearview mirror that are chasing you down. And fortunately for us, he didn't fumble the ball, but unfortunately for us, there was a penalty on JMS on the play. J. Jarvicious says it's an overreaction. We can find someone in free agency like we did in 2022 with Richie James. Well, then I think you're kind of taking the under on this, because we're talking about trading for a wide receiver. I'm all for bringing in a wide receiver via free agency for sure. Arturo Perez says Josh Allen doesn't have a Malik Neighbors. Yes, they have Keon Coleman, but Neighbors is on a different caliber. I think we can find ways to win by using our defense. That's true too. Don't forget about Khalil Shakir, who's still, he might be in the transition of not being this, but he is still their wide receiver 1 coming out of last year. The biggest difference between the Buffalo Bills offense as well, outside of having Josh Allen, is James Cook is a fucking dog, man. That dude, the amount of games, I want to say now it's 7 consecutive games with a touchdown, and just the amount of scrimmage yards that he gets on a game-to-game basis. We don't have that quite yet, and Cam Scataboo's not as of an explosive player as a James Cook, but I do think we can find ways to generate yards in our pass attack without having Malik Neighbors out there. Shout out my dog Marlo in the building. He says, I'm late. Work got busy. Feels good to get a win. Prayers up for Malik and Mr. Mara. Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. Nick said he taking the push. I'd like to at least pick up Isaiah Hodgins off the Steelers practice squad and see if he helps at all. If we get a good scenario with a low salary and don't have to give up much, I'd add someone. I like what you're talking here. The Isaiah Hodgins move is something that I'm not necessarily against, but I'm not fully in favor for. I think that Lil Jordan Humphrey brings that exact same skill set and possibly is a better wide receiver at this point in time. We saw Isaiah Hodgins come back with the New York Giants a year ago, and it didn't yield great results. So I think Isaiah Hodgins would be kind of double dipping. I think Bo Collins and Lil Jordan Humphrey can do what Isaiah Hodgins does without having to bring in another player on this roster. Jay Fed said, didn't Jacoby Myers ask for a trade with Vegas? He did at the beginning of the year. We talked about that a little bit as well. Antoine Weaver, this might be just Antoine. It's just an interesting spelling. Mr. Weaver says, let's all pray for John Mara. He's been diagnosed with cancer. We talked about that at the opening. We all got John Mara in our prayers, man, most definitely. That's a terrible situation to hear about. Simeon Toko said, where are all the mods? I need to give out some more wrenches, man. We haven't given out wrenches since like 2022 or something like that. So I'd say anybody that's interested in getting a wrench on this channel that's been rocking out with us for a while, reach out on Twitter or hit me up in email, authentic@allonornothinstudios.com. We do need some more mods. Some of the mods we got are a little bit outdated. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets holding us down for sure. Brownie said it's next man up. End of story. We don't have assets or capital, and I don't want my lame duck general manager risking future assets. Good point. Good point right there. So it seems like everybody's kind of basically in the same direction on this. They'd bring in a wide receiver via trade if it's the right scenario, but also, more looking at free agency and looking at the practice squad to bring in some players and elevate some players. Shout out my dog, OG Knockout, one time in the building. He said it's weird how every player the Giants had performed better once they left the team. It's got to be something behind that. There is something behind it. Good players go to better teams and play better. Is that surprising? Not really, right? When you break it down just that simple, good players who are on bad teams go to better teams and get better. It's not like Saquon Barkley was some bum. I know some dumbass Giants fans were trying to convince us of that. Like, oh, man, this dude's just dancing in the backfield. I got one of my homies I talk ball with on Twitter all the time. I got a lot of respect for. Said that Wayne Gallman was a better running back than Saquon Barkley. Like last year. You had people telling me this dude was going to fall off a cliff this past season. And he goes out there and he rushes for 2,500 fucking yards. They're like Xavier McKinney was a good player when he was here. Went to the Packers, got better. You know, you look at some of the guys that were like lackluster talent, and that's really not the case. Like a Ben Bredesen is serviceable lineman, you know, with the Bucks. What's my dog? Will Hernandez was another one. Went to the Cardinals, looked okay, but he's not looking like no generational talent or nothing crazy. John Feliciano went to the San Francisco 49ers and as a depth piece had a lot of success. You know, so I think it's just as simple as good players on bad teams go to good teams and get better. It's really simple, man. It's really simple. But shout out my dog, OG Knockout, man, always rocking out. And, you know, I'm sure you got to see the Daniel Jones performance on Sunday. And I know that's got you feeling Rich Homie Quan some type of way. Let me see. J.R. Vicious says, I think OBJ still has wide receiver 3 juice. I agree with you on that. Dickie said a healthy Darren Waller is like a pink blueberry. It doesn't exist. That's crazy. I think Dean is laughing at that right there because that's crazy. Let me see. Deilla said if Waller gets those Jonnu targets from last year, he should play fairly well for Miami. He'll be on a snap count tonight. He'll be on a snap count tonight, though, from what I hear. Yeah, he should be. First game back for sure. Quota said OBJ ain't coming back to play on this field after what happened to Neighbors and his tweets. Yeah, his tweets did talk about that, man. What do you call it? Death life or something like that? Yeah, that's facts. Ben Ayers said Bucks draft a running back or wide receiver every draft in the first 4 rounds every year. That's a nugget right there. And, man, Emeka Ibuka, man, that dude. I thought Emeka was going to be good. I did not know he was like the gap that we're seeing between like a Luther Burden who had his first big game last week, and he's looking like he's going to be one of them guys as well. But there is a gap between Luther Burden and Emeka Ibuka. Like something to be said about Ohio State and just, man, Emeka Ibuka is just, I don't know, man. He's a damn dog right now. Came into this league looking like a veteran already. And that's, I'm sure if you're a Bucks fan, I got a couple of homies that are Bucks fans, and I tried to tell them at the beginning of the year, like Emeka, you know, he one of them ones, but I didn't know it was going to be like this. So definitely good to see that. Let me see. This one comes from Above the Rim BK. He said, go beef up your line. That's true. That's true, man. That offensive line, especially from an interior perspective, definitely got to find a way to bolster up that offensive line for sure. Shout out my dog Dante. He said, I'm watching the Giants defensive 22 now, doing a breakdown on my dog Brian Burns for this video I'll put out this evening. I recommend, if you haven't, go subscribe to East Coast Gridiron. Dante and them are out there definitely ahead of the curve as far as, you know, college prospects, even coming out of high school prospects. They definitely got high quality going on over there at East Coast Gridiron. Go subscribe and definitely go check out that video. What was the video I retweeted recently? The Jaxson Dart video where you were saying you were supporting the decision to start him. Yeah, definitely go check out Dante doing great work over there. All right, let's get off into this next Giant Overreaction. I see the chat. Y'all got a lot to say. We be here all day. Y'all know what it is. We did get another super chat. Shout out to my dog Bergs, man. He had a great statement earlier in this stream. Bergs said, not going to lie, fam, the best gift on my birthday weekend was seeing Giants get a W. Here's to many more victory overreaction Mondays. Salute to my dog Bergs helping us raise the bar over here on Authentic on the Beard, or Authentic and the Beard. And that definitely goes a long way, bro. Appreciate you, man. And I've been seeing you in the chat, bro, dropping all gems, man. I pride myself on telling people that we got one of the best chats in all of content creation when it comes to football, man. A lot of people in here know ball. And, I commend y'all, and I salute the Giants fan base we got over here. Let's see. Diago said OG is speaking facts. Let's see. Yeah, OG always talking facts, man. OG said, no, I don't feel some type of way about Daniel Jones because the Giants couldn't get that out of him here. Oh, you must have not saw the game then. I'm talking about the lackluster performance because, you know, through the first 3 weeks, people were telling me like Daniel Jones is some different fucking quarterback and all this shit. And like, you saw it, man. The mistakes popped up. Maybe OG just didn't see it. But he said everything I had to say about Daniel Jones was when he was with the Giants. Yeah, and OG was a guy that told us from day one, like, Daniel Jones ain't the guy. And the consistency was what I was speaking towards as far as if you saw it on Sunday, because it was an inconsistent performance from Daniel Jones. And this is one where I'm surprised Word is not in the chat, because for the first 3 weeks of the season, Word came into the chat every week on the Giant Overreaction was like, Daniel, he always had a point about Daniel Jones doing this over there. look, man, y'all know what it is. I'm the only person that talked about that stat. No one else had the, I guess, time to go look up that stat. But when you go 41 consecutive games without putting together back-to-back performances with just two passing touchdowns, that's something that you don't see from franchise caliber quarterbacks. And Daniel Jones throughout the year, I want to say doesn't have a performance with two passing touchdowns. Maybe yesterday he did get two. He might have got two towards the end of that game. I'm not sure, but it's always been consistency with Daniel Jones. That's been the big problem. And hey, there goes my dog Word. What's going on, man, with the 199 super chat? No Daniel Jones vibes today from Word. No Daniel Jones vibes, just a cool face victory Monday for the New York Giants, man. Congratulations on the win, my dog. Hope you enjoying it. JDJ also coming in with the 199 super chat. He said, lock in, King. You almost lost that tie last week. Hey, I'm trying, man. I'm trying, bro. I'm trying. You know, every day it's all about locking in and trying to, raise that bar over here. Y'all know what it is. Let's see what else we got here before we move on to this next Giant overreaction. Ben Ayers says he thinks Daniel Jones is second in passing yards. I mean, yeah, Russell Wilson was first in passing yards. We got a long season to go. And I ain't one of these people that I'm hoping for Daniel Jones to fail or go out there and get hurt or anything like that. I just feel like I'm confident in my evaluation on Daniel Jones after seeing him here with the New York Giants for 6 years. So wish him well. He's going to have some good games, obviously, but it's not going to surprise me if this ends with the Indianapolis Colts the way it did with Carson Wentz in that season where, it seems like every year the Colts are knocking on the door of making the playoffs. And this might be the year they make it. It's tough in the AFC, but I'm not one of those Daniel Jones haters, as a lot of New York Giants fans used to call me back in the day. I'm just a realist, man, and I don't look at football through a too optimistic lens or a too pessimistic lens. Maybe sometimes a little bit pessimistic, but I just try to keep it funky and just keep it realistic as I can. The Illis said, one thing I've noticed about Daniel Jones this year is he's not wasting any time going through his drop back, especially on play action. He's getting back and setting his feet way faster than he ever did here. That's true. And he has credited a lot of the advancements in his game to the time he spent in Minnesota with KOC. So, yeah, man, I wish Daniel Jones well, and I hope that's the case with all New York Giants fans. Quota dropping some facts right there, talking about the AFC South. Definitely a cupcake division. That's for damn sure. All right, so we got this one out the way. Fairly, lopsided results here. I got to start putting up the poll in the chat for you guys. It's a little difficult for me the way StreamYard is set up, but I'm going to start doing that on some of these Giant overreactions. But I want to talk about coaching here a little bit. And this was definitely a game where Brian Daboll and his staff were definitely under the microscope. So let's go ahead and get off into this next Giant overreaction. Now, this is probably the topic that I wanted to talk about the most, and it was the coaching on Sunday. And this is another one that came from me. I said Brian Daboll outcoached Jim Harbaugh yesterday, and I absolutely thought that was the case. And I'm going to try to break this down and pitch this to you and support my stance here. But, a lot of people are looking at Brian Daboll as the main sole reason as to why the New York Giants have been such a bad team and why coming into this Week 4 matchup against the Chargers, he had a record of 3-17 in his last 20 games. But I thought coaching was a big difference in this game. The defense was a huge difference as well. Having Jaxson Dart at the quarterback position was definitely a difference as well. Just the energy across the entirety of the team. But what I liked about this game and the plan in this game was the adjustments to the game plan when Malik Neighbors went out. The commitment to the run and, just the giving the defense and putting that defense in position to go out there and create takeaways. I love the creativity that I saw from Mike Kafka in the red zone on that Theo Johnson touchdown. I saw that Dan Duggan had tweeted out like this wasn't the prettiest play or something like that. And I gave him a little pushback. I said, what was not pretty about that? I mean, it looked like that 2-point conversion against the Tennessee Titans to start the 2022 season with Saquon Barkley. And Jaxson Dart came out and he had said something about like him and Theo Johnson added a little bit of a wrinkle to that play. And Brian Daboll said they've been running that play the same way for 10 years. And Jaxson Dart and Theo Johnson decided to take it upon their own, decision-making to change up how they ran it. So, I just love that creativity in the red zone. And the other thing was Daboll was 2 for 2 on his challenges on the day. And those are things that we've seen all too often where Brian Daboll goes to challenge a play and we're on the negative side of that. And in this game against the Chargers, that was not the case. Third down, the Giants played extremely well too. 7 of 15 on third down, and they held the Los Angeles Chargers to, I believe it was either 4 of 12 or 4 of 16. I can't remember exactly, but having the Chargers only convert 4 third downs, that's an amazing feat. So shout out to the coaching staff, and all of that is underneath the tutelage and the umbrella of Brian Dable. So as I say, Brian Dable out-coached Jim Harbaugh. You got to give props to Shane Bowen and Mike Kafka as well. I heard my dog BT Giants, my boy Tone, talking about this in the Twitter Spaces earlier, and I wanted to give him his props on this. Me and BT don't agree on every take. Not to say that we disagree on a bunch of takes or nothing like that, but there are certain aspects of the game that me and Tone see very similarly. And in the Spaces today, he was breaking down about how Brian Dable's game plan to win games is such an easy philosophy to spot. It's all about limiting the quarterback's attempts from the quarterback position as far as passing attempts, but also getting the quarterback over 10 rushing attempts has been the formula for Brian Dable to win games. Now, 10 or more rushing attempts from your quarterback and going under 30 attempts from the quarterback, you could say that that's a recipe for victory from any organization in the National Football League that has a dual threat at the quarterback position. But I went back today and I looked back at some of the games in the Daniel Jones era that the New York Giants won. Now, I went all the way back to 2019. And don't forget that, when Pat Shurmur was the head coach for the New York Giants, we didn't have Daniel Jones running read option. From 2019 to 2021, Daniel Jones had 0 games over 10 rushing attempts. And the New York Giants had a record with him on the field of 12-26. In 2019, Daniel Jones did not have a single start. Listen to this stat clearly, because this is straight up fucking negligence. Daniel Jones did not have a single start where he threw for under 31 passing attempts. And y'all know when quarterbacks are dropping back to throw the ball this much, as we saw from Justin Herbert on Sunday, that's not a recipe to win games. In 2020, 4 of the 5 Jones wins came with less than 28 passing attempts. So these are all numbers that support that when you have a dual threat quarterback, especially when he's on the fringe of being a dual threat, like he's not like a Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Mike Vick type of dual threat quarterback. He's a guy that can run like a Jaxson Dart, who I think is in a higher class than a Daniel Jones when it comes to being a dual threat. But these are two quarterbacks that are very capable. And on the day, Jaxson Dart did have 10 rushing attempts. Now, just 20 passing attempts for Jaxson Dart. And to me, that's a recipe for victory. It allows you to be able to control the time of possession, control the clock, keep the opposing team's quarterback on the sideline. And I thought that this was just a great point for my dog Tone in those spaces, man. Like, keep it at around 10 rushing attempts for the quarterback and keep it under 30 passing attempts for the quarterback. Now, I didn't see anybody talking about how Brian Dable outcoached Jim Harbaugh. And I want to talk about Jim Harbaugh because had the tables have been turned and you saw Brian Dable go out there and have Jaxson Dart throw the ball 41 times, neglecting the running game the way that Jim Harbaugh did, we would have woke up today and everybody would have been calling for Brian Dable to be fired. The Chargers were also undisciplined. 9 penalties in the first half, 14 penalties on the day for 107 yards in this game from Jim Harbaugh coach team. That doesn't make any sense. And Jim Harbaugh is known for running the damn ball. They gave Omarion Hampton 12 attempts in this game, and he was averaging 10.7 yards per carry. He had 12 rushes for 128 yards, 5 receptions for 37 yards. Listen, Omarion Hampton was basically the entirety of the Chargers offense. This number right here was the biggest number on the day for me. Not only did Justin Herbert throw the ball 41 times in this game, 26 of his attempts came before the half. That's not a recipe to win games. The Giants have the 30th ranked rushing defense in the league right now. Why aren't you trying to just run the ball right down the middle? And in return, I got to watch Omarion Hampton go over 150 scrimmage yards, and I had to give up $50 to my dog Luis in the chat. But, I really think Harbaugh let his ego get in the way of this game. After throwing the ball 47 times against the Denver Broncos in a victory, he went out here and allowed his quarterback to throw the ball and didn't correct some of those mistakes. He allowed the quarterback to throw the ball 41 times. Omarion Hampton had 17 touches in this game for 165 yards and 1 touchdown. That's negligence on the coaching staff. And you could argue that maybe Brian Dable didn't outcoach Jim Harbaugh. Maybe Jim Harbaugh just coached a shitty-ass game and it had nothing to do with Brian Dable. But in my opinion, the game plan for the Los Angeles Chargers should have been simple throughout this game. It's not like the New York Giants were going out there and scoring a ton of points in the first half. You should have committed to the run, and that was something that they just did not do in this game. And honestly, I think it cost Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers a win, because although the Giants had a gritty performance on Sunday, if Harbaugh just commits to the run, I think this would be an easy victory for the Chargers. Excuse me. So let's see how y'all feel about it. But that was what I noticed from the game. And I had one of my homies who was a former New York Giants fan that converted to a Washington Commanders fan. He responded on that post, and he said, "No, this is simple. The defense went out there and won this game. It had nothing to do with coaching." And I broke down all those numbers, and he said, "Okay, you got it." And I sent back a gift to him that just said, "That was easy. Like, give you one of those," because it's simple mathematics here. You got a guy averaging over 10 yards per carry, and granted, that was not the case throughout the entirety of the game. I thought the New York Giants defense did a good job stopping Omarion Hampton through about the first 2.5 quarters. And then that's just more of the reason why you got to commit to the run. And being that we are New York Giants fans and we know what it's like to have Saquon Barkley in the backfield, how many times did we see this with Saquon Barkley where you go throughout the first 2 quarters of the game and it's like, oh, man, he's getting bottled up. And then by the time you get into the third and the fourth quarter, Saquon Barkley's breaking off multiple big explosive runs and running the New York Giants offense into the end zone. So I thought it was a no-brainer. Let's see what the chat is talking about here. And, we'll keep it pushing to the next and final Giant overreaction here. Let me see where we at. I say we'll start here. Boss Les says he's taking the under on this one. A lesson learned is in the building. What's going on, lesson learned? He said Dable has to be Andy Reid-like and be very creative and keep these defenses on their heels. Totally agree. Bookend said he still struggles feeling backside pressure too. I guess I'm not sure if you're talking about Jackson Dart on that one or Justin Herbert. I'm not quite sure on that one. OG Knockout said, nah, this team has been bad for 13 years now. That's true. That's definitely true. And how much of that can we blame on Brian Dable? Is it organizational failure, the cliche a lot of people talk about? Or is it just that, John Mara just keeps going out here and hiring the wrong guys? JDJ said he's taking the under. Those first 10 to 20 scripted plays set the tone for the day and got us off to a promising start. I thought they put players in a position to win on both sides of the ball. Absolutely. I mean, and a lot of people will say that, when Brian Dable got away from the scripted offense, that the offense took a hit. But what they're ignoring is that we lost Malik Neighbors after the third drive of the game or something like that. So Brian Dable had to pivot and try to find a way to be able to keep the opposing quarterback on the sideline while still trying to, gain yards and try to put the ball in the end zone. I thought he did a really good job of that. Lou Mateo said he's taking the under. OG Knockout said, honestly, the Giants haven't been good since the last Super Bowl. Brownie said he's taking the under. Only real questionable decision was not kicking the field goal and taking 3. Fat Big Ball Day Balls is back. Book it. I like that right there. I definitely like that. There was a time in the second half, too, where we were right around midfield, and he had an opportunity to take a long field goal, and he ended up punting the ball that a lot of people had beef with as well. But I think ultimately it ended up being the right decision. Hod says he's taking the under. I feel like Dable has already proved he can win tough games. It's always been getting talent on the roster. I agree. I think that there's an unfair perspective that a lot of New York Giants fans are, placing a lot of the blame on Brian Dable. They're almost acting like Joe Shane went out there and gave him the ingredients to go out here and win a bunch of games in 2025 with this offense. I'm going to continue to keep saying it. This is the same offense from 2024 minus the quarterback. We should not be expecting egregiously different results. It's the same head coach. It's the same play caller, the same offensive coordinator. It's the same defensive coordinator. Now we've upgraded the talent on the defensive side of the ball. We should expect different results. But on the offense, you're just hoping that Brian Dable can coach the lack of personnel that he has into victories. And yesterday we got that. Nick says it's an overreaction. He says, our defense won us the game. We got to be better at red zone offense. Pressure from the defensive line forced Herbert to make mistakes, which helped us get the win. We lose if Henry doesn't turn it over. I guess he's saying Herbert. Of course, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that the defense had no play in the way that game panned out and gave us a victory, right? But what was different from the first couple of games? Why are the New York Giants able to put 29 pressures on this offense in this game on Sunday? You don't think that defensively coaching adjustments had anything to do with that? Maybe not having Abdul Carter play as many snaps at off-ball linebacker, getting him to be able to pin his ears back and get after the quarterback? I thought the defense stepped up in a major way in this game. I also thought that from an offensive standpoint, you needed enough points to go out there and win this game. That was not the same 16.1 points per game offense that we saw last season. We saw a team go out there and put 21 points up against one of the better defenses in the league. Say what you want about the injuries up front for the Los Angeles Chargers in this game, losing 3 of their starting linemen in this game, right? At the end of the day, the New York Giants went out there and handled business against a great team. Not just a good team, a great team. And a lot of that came with the situational decisions that Brian Daboll made in this game. And I just thought the game plan to keep Herbert on the sidelines, and I see you corrected that, Nick, so good thing I'm on the right page here with you. I just thought the game plan, the pivot in the game plan, and also just the way that we coached against Jim Harbaugh in this game and, forced him to get away from the true identity of that offense, which is running the ball. I thought that was a great job by Brian Daboll and his coaching staff for sure. Ben Ayers said the Colts haven't been using Daniel Jones' legs much at all. Yeah, only when they get in the red zone. He had 3 rushing touchdowns coming into this game, and I think all of them were in the red zone. Marlowe said this is next level research. Thank you, man. I just try to just dig into the numbers, and when I hear someone say something, I don't automatically try to give them pushback, which a lot of people in that spaces did today when my dog Tone was talking about this. And I said, well, let me go look for myself and just go through and look at all the game logs, and that's what I came away with. The Illa says the fact that the defense only allowed 1 reception to Ladd McConkey is a victory within itself. I still can't. That's actual fact. I'm not sure what the last sentence means there, but yeah, look, it didn't look great all day long from the secondary, right? There were moments there where we looked like we had a lot of open holes in the secondary, and tackling-wise, things looked bad. But one thing that I talked about on the preview show on Thursday was allowing the Chargers to get into the red zone. I thought that was one of the most important things I said on the preview, that once you limit them from getting in the red zone, they're going to try to beat you with the explosive plays, and then you got a secondary task that you got to handle there as well. I think the Chargers only got into the red zone 1 time on the day. Let me double-check that. I do got the box score. I love that new feature from StreamYard where they show me the screen in a little small window when I switch out of the tabs. It's a beautiful thing. So they were 4 for 12 on 3rd down, and in the red zone, they were 0 for 1. To me, that was just an incredible approach, right? Is like shutting down the run, keeping everything in front of you and trying to limit the explosive plays. And in return, the Giants found a way to keep, the Los Angeles Chargers under 20 points in this game. So I don't want people to get it confused. The defense went out there and they balled out. They absolutely balled out. But something had to change here. And I think that, from a coaching standpoint, I love the game plan from Brian Daboll. And you just don't know. We're not in that office when they're creating the game plan. I don't think that Brian Daboll comes into, Monday morning when he's talking with his coaches and preparing for the upcoming week. I don't think he just looks at Shane Bowen and goes, hey, what you got, man? What are we doing this week? And I think that fans think that that's how it goes because Shane Bowen is the defensive coordinator. When you determine what the philosophy is going to be for your offense, you're also determining what the philosophy is going to be for the game, how we're going to beat the Chargers. And it seems like the emphasis, I can't sit up here and say 100%, but it seems like the emphasis in this game was to keep Justin Herbert on the sidelines, run the ball. We saw the emphasis with that early on in the first half and throughout the second half with Cam Scataboo. And I just thought it was a great game plan. It wasn't pretty. It was absolutely gritty. And I thought it was a solid game plan. Marlowe said, beautiful nugget right there. Yeah, I'm always looking for them nuggets, bro. You know how we do over here on Authentic in the Beard. Brownie says he's taking the under for Bowen as well. Although this is what we expect of him with this much talent on the defense, he coached a good game. Absolutely. Mike said it's an overreaction. He didn't do much better than Harbaugh. there was still weird decisions like running at the end of the second instead of kneeling and not taking the field goal in the fourth. I think it was more so execution. I'm trying to think about the exact instance you're talking about. Running at the end of the second instead of kneeling and not taking the field goal. Are you talking about going for it on fourth down? I guess those are subjective. I'm going to go back and look at the tape today, and I'll keep this in mind, Mike. Kansas Zero says, great data bomb. Yeah, man, anytime I say something, I try to have supporting, evidence behind it. And, a lot of people can, disagree with decisions and whatnot and look to analytics and whatever they want to look for. But for me, I just try to look at the data and just pile up the data and see if it matches what I'm seeing on tape and what I'm seeing in these games. OG Knockout said they should have kept Steve Spagnuolo and kept Tom Coughlin to draft the defensive players. That's where the Giants truly fucked up. Yeah, and I think that the results that Tom Coughlin was getting, along with Spags, towards the end of their tenure here, is why they didn't keep them around, because it was fucking ugly, OG. It wasn't pretty. It was ugly. During the time when Steve Spagnuolo took over as the interim head coach for the New York Giants, it was not good, So in hindsight, yeah, we've seen Spagnuolo go over there with the Kansas City Chiefs and just constantly have a dominant defense that keeps Patrick Mahomes in these games and always gives them a chance with that type of quarterback play. So, yeah, in hindsight, I agree with you. At the time, I wasn't like, oh, man, we got to keep Spags, man. I wasn't like that. I ain't going to lie. J. Jarvicius says it's an overreaction. They lost their best tackles, which is why our defensive line was able to eat, and we got almost 2 pick sixes. Dable played not to lose, not to win. We did almost get 2 pick sixes. One of the pick sixes, we only got 3 points off it. The Giants only got 11 points off the turnovers on the day. So not shitty, not all that great. Ultimately, you had to have that offense put the ball in the end zone, and they did that on the day without their best weapon. You could say, yeah, they lost their offensive lineman. You think that's more important than us losing Malik Neighbors? I don't. Word says still questionable play calls. I don't know if it was from Kafka or Dable. You got to tell me the play calls, because for me, I didn't see many questionable play calls. I think all too often people look at, and I'm not saying this about Word, but a lot of people look at like play calling like Madden. Like they're just like, you should have ran there when I feel like, or you should have passed there when I felt like you shouldn't have ran there, right? They're only looking at the type of play call, but they're not looking at the personnel. They're not looking at what the personnel that they're viewing going up against the defense, which is most important. And what is the defense trying to take away? That's why I'll never sit up here and come up here and like sit on a high horse. Like I truly know what the fuck Brian Dable is actually doing. Like I try to go out there and look at as much all 22 as I can, absorb and intake as many opinions from the professionals as I can and try to take that information, relay it to what I'm seeing on tape. But at the end of the day, I don't know how to run a professional National Football League offense. I don't necessarily know all the details of what they're seeing. And I do try to go back in, especially on Monday morning. I can't come here Monday morning and be like, man, the play calls, I just can't do it. I really can't, because I got to look at the All-22, review those plays. For those of y'all that have strong opinions that don't look at the All-22, I don't even know how you see all that shit on the live broadcast, because when I watch All-22, I have to rewind the same play sometimes up to 15, 20 times to view everything that is going on. Like I see some of these professionals like JT O'Sullivan on the quarterback school, and maybe this is preparation that he does before he actually does the actual content that he puts out. But he's able to just view the play once and then break it down with his clicker and draw the play on the screen so fast. And I'm just like, bro, I'm like looking backside at what Malik Neighbors is doing, and then I got to rewind the play, go back and look at the other side and look at the weak side and see what they're doing, and then rewind it and look at what they're doing, as far as the protection goes up front, and then rewind it again and look at the quarterback and his mechanics and align that with his drop back to what the wide receivers' routes are doing. It takes me like 15 minutes on one play, and then when I'm done, I still am like, I don't understand what the fuck's going on here. So I don't understand how people pop up Monday and just go, I don't like the play call. To me, that's just some Madden shit. I'm not going to lie. I got to keep it funky with y'all. It's like I wanted them to run right there, and they passed the ball. We can't view football like that. I saw when we ran the ball, I believe it was 3 straight times with Cam Scataboo. People got beef with the play calls there. Why the fuck did we bring in Cam Scataboo? That's what he is a professional at. And when we were talking about shit during the preseason, right, all we were talking about was, oh, man, Cam Scataboo, we finally got a short yardage back. We should have did that with Saquon back in the day. And then when we run them 3 times in a row, you still got fans out there that got beef. like I said, I'm not pointing the finger at just one particular person in the chat, but I just see that all too often. And it's like, I hope the people that are coming with that kind of an approach, I hope you're looking at the All-22 on Mondays and on Tuesdays and on Wednesdays and on Thursdays, but I doubt that's the case. Like, as basically a full-time content creator, right? Like, I'm full-time content creator and full-time working on records in my studio and full-time cinematography, right? I still don't got enough time to look at all this shit. So if you do, I'm like, man, maybe you do. But at the end of the day, if we're going to break down like what we don't like in the play calling, we have to break down what we don't like in the play calling. I think that's very important, right? Like the chat before this was telling me about some instances, and I screenshot it. I'm going to go back and see, like at least support it with that data. I think that's very important. Kevin the PRF is in the building representing Washington Commanders. He said it's an overreaction. He said Dable just had one huge advantage that will disintegrate as the season progresses, having no idea what to prepare for in his first-time starter, Dart. I don't know. Are you saying maybe that Dart was the X factor in this game, that they don't have tape on Dart? That's another one, right? Like, I'm seeing people are like, I don't know if this is Kevin saying this. I'm having trouble. Kevin, you be in my brain the way you've been typing as of lately, man. I don't know what's going on. But for me, a lot of people on social media are running around with this rhetoric that the only difference between having Russell Wilson out there and versus having Jaxson Dart out there, as far as a game plan approach, was that Jaxson Dart has the ability to just run around. I think a lot of people don't understand what RPO is, what SRO is, what read option is, what design quarterback runs truly look like. I think people really think that Jaxson Dart's just dropping back and going, oh, fuck it, it's time to run, when that's not necessarily the case. I don't know if Kevin the PRF is necessarily saying that, but he says he has one huge advantage that will disintegrate as the season progresses, having no idea what to prepare for. I guess that's what he's saying. Like, teams didn't know what to prepare for in Jaxson Dart. Man, y'all must think like these NFL coaches are just like fucking not paying attention to what the fuck is going on around the league. Do we really think that Jaxson Dart went out there and did all that he did in the preseason, and Jim Harbaugh was not sitting there going, man, by the time we got to go up there and see them in week 4, you see them dual threat capabilities, you see the read option, you see all these design runs, you see all the up tempo. You don't think he did that? You think he was just going into this game blind, Kevin? Like, I don't got no idea what Jaxson Dart brings. You don't think they looked at his tape from Ole Miss? Shout out to my dog Mace one time. I heard Real Mace Black in the Twitter Spaces today, right? And he was talking about how some of these things that we're seeing from Jaxson Dart are some of the things that Lane Kiffin ran with him when he was at Ole Miss, and they were giving him fucking hella pushback. I sent them a little compilation real quick, and I sent it to my homies in the group chat as well. Like, look at all these plays right here and tell me this don't look like Sunday. I challenge y'all to go back and just look at the highlights. You could be lazy and just look at the highlights. Go back and look at the highlights of Ole Miss versus Georgia Tech with Jaxson Dart at the quarterback position, and tell me that didn't look exactly like what we just fucking saw on Sunday. Teams are already prepared for Jaxson Dart, and now they're going to prepare even more. The one advantage you're saying, Kevin, that we have really wasn't the advantage in this game. To be honest, I think the gritty, gutsy performance from Jaxson Dart and just having a rookie quarterback starting, the team surrounding him is going to be like, we got to go out there and have extra emphasis and go out here and try to get this fucking dub. I thought we saw full effort on Sunday from the New York Giants. But to think that like these other teams have no idea what they're going up against, hit me up on Twitter, Kevin. I'll send you the compilation from the Georgia Tech game if you want it so you can see it. That shit looked the touchdown run on the first drive from Jaxson Dart, where he quickly catches the snap, drops back, and then Cam Scataboo leads the run. They ran that same exact fucking play at Ole Miss a ton of times. The quarterback draws, the read option that we saw, all of that stuff was ran while he was at Ole Miss. And you might have missed when I was talking about in the opening about how the knock on Jaxson Dart was he didn't run a pro-style offense at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin. That's fucking narrative that people are just not paying attention to. The same people were saying that Shedeur Sanders ran a pro-style offense at Colorado with Pat Shurmur. Bro, 25% of the completions were arrow screens. That's not pro-style. That's fucking high school ball at the end of the day. So I totally disagree with that. Quota said he's taking the push. I think the difference was more the juice that Dart and Scataboo gave us and you can feel it gave the defense energy. I still can't trust Dable. Would Harbaugh not have a kicker active for 3 years? I wouldn't even say I don't know. I would say absolutely fucking not. And those are definitely issues that Brian Dable dragged into the 2025 season. You got to find ways to be better and address that situation, and hopefully that doesn't happen. Quota says, out-coached yesterday? Sure, I guess. Listen, when I see Jim Harbaugh, if you know what Jim Harbaugh does, you think back to J.J. McCarthy and all that shit, right? And if you know what Jim Harbaugh does and how he likes to play football, the fact that Omarion Hampton was averaging over 10 yards a carry and only got the ball 12 times, I can't support my data anymore. Straight up. Shout out Ben Harris. He said he's taking the under mainly because Chargers had 2 huge plays that resulted in touchdowns. Other than that, it was domination. Imagine if they don't get those 2 huge plays. Imagine if Wan'Dale Robinson catches the ball on 4th down in the end zone. This is a fucking blowout. And we're going to sit up here and say that Brian Dable didn't out-coach Jim Harbaugh? Okay. Deaton Shelton said it's an overreaction. The team wanted it more and fed off Dart's energy. Do we just think that's what it was? That was it? That was it. The up-tempo offense that we saw on the first scoring drive had nothing to do with it? I don't know, bro. But, you know, all I do is try to just give y'all the data. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to give you the data, and at the end of the day, it's up to you. Y'all know me. I'm never up here to try to change nobody's opinion. I Bleed NY Blue 23 said, great content. I appreciate you being in the building, man. Welcome to the family. If you haven't been here for any of these streams, appreciate you pulling up, rocking out with us. Berg says, really got to applaud the defense. You really do. That defense went out there and played to the level. Honestly, I'm not even going to say they played to the level that we expected, because I actually expect a little better. I think that this front can be even better. I think that this secondary can have less holes in it, and they can, when we're getting pressure on the quarterback, protect some of these completions we saw. Did you guys get a chance to see the Brian Burns spin move that was to Justin Herbert's right-hand side? Inside spin from Brian Burns. He got there in like literally a half a fucking second, and Justin Herbert let the ball go so quick when he hit his back foot and still completed the shit for a first down. I want to see us, when we get to the quarterback that quickly, I want to see the secondary playing a little bit of tighter coverage. Let's see the separation be a little bit tighter. And I think this defense will be playing to the caliber of what we thought that they could be in the offseason. But Bergs is right. You definitely got to applaud the defense. DeIlla said, yeah, I thought Hampton was going to tear us up. He did, but I thought it was going to be way worse than that. I did too, and I thought it was going to be a bit of a more consistent rushing attack. And I think that was why Harbaugh panicked and decided to go to the passing attack that got him the victory the week before against the Denver Broncos as well. J. Jarvicious says, Kafka and Dable still suck at red zone play calling. Support it. Let me know what play calls you thought sucked. Because utilizing Jaxson Dart with his legs in the red zone to me was really the only option you had when Malik Neighbors was out. It was really your only option. Jaxson Dart and Cam Scataboo. If your draft picks pan out the way that you want them to pan out, that should be the way that we score in the red zone. And we got to see great success with that with Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones in 2022. I know you like this segment, Luis. I know you like this segment. Vince says, I'm sad about Malik, obviously. It was a bad pass by Dart. On the play where Malik got hurt, I don't look at it as a bad pass. And I don't know if you emphasize and place blame on Dart on that, but this is a freak accident. Kevin the PRF says, overreaction part 2. On defense, I'm sure losing altered their game plan offensively. You think, let me ask you this, Kevin. This makes sense? You got 3 linemen and your star left tackle out of the lineup. You think dropping back to throw the ball more is the best plan of attack? I'm going to watch out for your answer in the chat. Because for me, if my quarterback is dealing with one of the better pass rush units in the entire league, and clearly he's being put under pressure, and my running back is out here doing damage like we saw the way that this game kind of panned out with them averaging over 10 yards a carry, and I got 3 linemen out of the lineup, to me, if I'm going to use my critical thinking skills, sounds like I need to give the ball to my running backs a little bit more so that we can stop the New York Giants defense from pinning their ears back and getting after our quarterback. That's how I see it. Nick says, if Dable keeps progressing with Dart, I think he'll keep his job. 0% of me believes Joe Shane can be a good general manager. I don't know why that got me laughing so hard. He says, is there any way that ownership gets rid of Joe Shane at the end of the season? I fuck with this right here, Nick. Let me tell you why I fuck with this. Because this is very out-the-box thinking right here. Nobody talking about this. The possibility that Brian Daboll could possibly get retained, but Joe Schoen be fired at the end of the season. I don't think there's a huge possibility in this, but most people have been thinking the opposite, that Brian Daboll will be the guy that will get fired, that's on the hot seat right now, and Joe Schoen will come back. But I've constantly remained steady on my thoughts on Brian Daboll. Now, for those of y'all that say you want Brian Daboll fired, I'm not going to give you no pushback, right? I don't call for people's jobs normally, and I'm not calling for jobs in this certain instance here as well. When you look at Brian Daboll, in my opinion, he should be given the liberty to get the opportunity to go out here in 2025 and prove his worth. In 2022, Brian Daboll won the Coach of the Year. He won 9 games and a playoff victory. That's one of those for me. In year 2, when his quarterback went down and his general manager literally brought in nothing to supplement on that offensive line, banked on his youthful draft picks from the year before to come in and protect his $160 million investment. He thought guys like Marcus McKeithen, Joshua Ezedu, and a bunch of other bums were going to be able to protect Daniel Jones. Instead, Daniel Jones got his neck crunched up, and then he ultimately blew out his knee. And Brian Daboll still won 4 of his last 7 games that year, and he won 3 games with Tommy DeVito, and he won 6 games with a roster that really looked like a 3-win roster. To me, that gives you a quiet one of these. One of those. It's kind of in the background. Now 2024 is a fucking debacle. The shit was awful. Brian Daboll looked like absolute dog water. And when you look at him after winning 4 of the last 7 games to end the 2023 season, he went on to win only 3 of his next 20 games. That's on Brian Daboll. So when I look at that and try to evaluate that, if I'm the owner of the New York Giants and John Mara, I see 1 great season on this side. I see 1 pretty average season when the quarterback got hurt, and I see 1 pathetic season. That's why I think Brian Daboll deserves this opportunity in 2025 to come to a conclusion before we think about firing him. Unless it just goes off the rails, which maybe if you lose this game, it could have. But he went out there and he got the dub with his back against the wall. And until Brian Daboll is no longer the New York Giants head coach, I'm going to support the fuck out of him while he's here. Like I said, a lot of people like to point the finger at coaching and all this stuff when they just see a team go out there and play bad. But sometimes that's not all on the coach. I think it was Jeff Saturday. Yeah, it was Jeff Saturday recently who came out and he talked about that balance. I thought it was a great take. He supported the decision to start Jaxson Dart, but he also talked about not only do players got to go out there and ultimately win the game, and he talked about himself as a player. He said, it's our job to go out there between those white lines and go win the game. It's the coach's job to prepare us and put us in the best situation to do that. That's been a mixed bag with Brian Daboll. I can't sit up here in front on that. C. Rob said he's taking the under. Should have kicked that field goal and put us up by 6, but otherwise, solid. I think they were a little bit worried about that offense coming down. And, imagine if Brian Daboll goes for the 3 there and the Chargers come down and score 7 and win the game by 1 point. People would have been like, man, he should have went for it on 4th down. So that's a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situation. But I could see it from both sides. I could see it. DeIlla says the Chargers stuck to the way they've been playing the game, though. They have been a team that is going to throw the football, and Harbaugh did not divert from that in this game. But that's not true. Go back and look at last season and look at how much they relied on running the damn ball throughout the entirety of the season. You could say that against the Denver Broncos. I did my research in that game for sure. But last year, that was a team that it felt like Justin Herbert should have been throwing the ball more and having bigger and better passing statistics throughout the year. And they relied on J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards a ton last year. So I can't agree with that all the way. I'll do a little more research on it and come back next show. Because y'all know the theme has been going live basically as much as we can throughout the week. So tomorrow we're going to try to go live again. Let's see. Marlo said former NY Giants fan. How'd that work? Insane. Yeah, he saw Jaden Daniels get drafted to the Washington Commanders and then, jump ship. And from an OG, I thought that shit was crazy as fuck, man. But, it is what it is, man. I'm not up here to tell people how to fan, but, it is what it is. I Bleed NY Blue 23 said it's an overreaction. Dart's energy and the Giants' defense. I think that played a role, but we think they just rolled out there same nonsensical bullshit they've been doing the first 3 weeks and just said, hey, we're just gonna rely on Dart's energy and our defense today. I didn't think that was the case, especially with Malik Neighbors going out of this game. Got to disagree there. Greg said he's taking the under. Even a blind squirrel can find a nut. Dable needs to do this consistently. That's true. Ain't no doubt about it. But, Greg, do you expect Dable to do this consistently with this personnel on the offense? Let me know. I'll keep an eye out for it because I don't. Word says it's an overreaction. Winning cures all. Yeah, winning cures all, I guess. Yeah. I also thought Jim Harbaugh got outcoached yesterday, too. Let's see. B-Rog says he's taking the under. He says, I'm on the fence, though. The coaches adjusted the game plan for Dart. I didn't like after Neighbors' injury, they got delay of game penalty even with a timeout. Win the game versus a 3-0 team. Jim Harbaugh got outcoached. Yeah. I mean, I look, whether we argue that it was more on Jim Harbaugh or more on Brian Dable, which I do think that's the sentiment I'm getting from the chat, at the end of the day, Brian Dable coached a better game than Jim Harbaugh. That's why I said he got outcoached. Jim Harbaugh, this to me was a little bit of an unexpected coaching performance from him. And had that have been Brian Dable on the other side, having his quarterback throwing the ball 41 times, imagine Cam Scataboo averaging over 10 fucking yards per carry, and we sitting up here going, nah, man, Brian Dable didn't get outcoached. Really? You know what I'm saying? Oh, Bookend said he was talking about Daniel Jones when I was talking about Daniel. Yeah, I'm a little behind on the chat. That's my bad on that one. OG said Joe Shane is getting a pass, and I don't understand why. Yeah, I think some of the offseason moves could be a reason why, but you're right. He doesn't deserve a pass for sure. I agree with you on that. Kevin Wilson said he's taking the under. I'm going to try to catch up to the chat here a little bit. Let me see. Is this with a gap? I believe it is. Says that OG Giants hat, though, flames. Yeah, shout out to the beard. Connected with our boy Cernock to get me this joint. I like this. When I'm feeling like I want my coaching vibes, I like to wear this shirt with this hat. This hat, I really don't got much. Even though it's a white hat, I really don't got much that feels OG to go with this hat. So I gotta get some more fits for this joint for sure. But shout out my dog one time. Ben Ayers said offense getting off to a fast start helped the defense. Look, I'm glad you brought that up. One of the most important things about this game was scoring on the opening drive and playing with the lead throughout this whole entire game. The Giants were never down on the scoreboard. We're going to move away from this one for a little bit before I get frustrated. Yo, Lou Mateo said we turned Harbaugh into Ron Burgundy. Don't disagree there at all. Rob says defense looking good, but only problem was big run for a touchdown and Banks gave up Johnston for a touchdown when he let him go. Yeah, that's true. And Deontay Banks had a mixed bag. I liked what I saw from him at kick return. That was cool to see that. He was getting some yards and whatnot. You know, I was kind of waiting for him to fumble the ball. I was just like, damn, if Deontay fumbles, the fan base is never, ever going to let up on him. But decent bag. He missed on that 3rd and 18 where Justin Herbert scrambled for 23 yards. That was all on Deontay Banks, who took an inside pursuit route, which is something you should never be doing at the cornerback position, and ultimately gave an easy lane for Justin Herbert to go out there and get them yards. But, yeah, definitely agree with Rob on that. Let me see. I thought I saw one addressed at me. Marlo said, please note Spags is also coaching opposite one of the best head coaches in the NFL history. Spags' tenure here as a head coach was rough. This is why I love my chat, man. This is why I love my chat right here. That's a straight-up gem right there. Mike said, then again, I'm not a guy that hates on Dable. I truly believe execution and the defensive coach are what messed us up so far this season. Yeah, you know what's funny about that, right? Like, the whole coaching situation with Shane Bowen. Last week, everybody was saying fire Shane Bowen, right? That was the whole theme in my chat, on social media, and all that. And yet and still, people think that coaching, from a coaching standpoint, nothing truly changed in this game except the Chargers' offensive line having injuries on it. I can't agree with that one. I like where Mike is coming from with that statement there for sure. Let me check the Super Chats. I see another one just came in, I think. I think I got that one from JDJ. I don't think we got this one from Word. Shout out to Word coming in with the $4.99 super chat. He said all DJ needed was a smaller market team to look decent. Listen, I thought I could say this confidently. OG Knockout's not going to agree with this. I know that off the break, okay? Did you not think Daniel Jones looked decent at times with the New York Giants? Word? Because I did. You know, I'll never forget the debate I got into with Lawrence Tynes. I said, Daniel Jones is a tick above average quarterback. And that was entering 2024. And this was when he was saying Daniel Jones is going to be an MVP candidate. He doubled down and said that again for this season as well. So for me, I don't know if you guys remember, but I used to always say up here during the Daniel Jones era, I will never, ever, ever, ever come up here and call Daniel Jones trash because he's not trash. I try to avoid calling any player trash sitting down from my couch. That shit looked crazy to me. But at the end of the day, Daniel Jones was decent here. You ain't think he was decent in 2022? I actually thought he was decent underneath Jason Garrett and Joe Judge for those 2 seasons. I know the numbers didn't say it, but 2021 and 2020, I thought Daniel Jones looked okay. The consistency wasn't there and he didn't have the pieces around him. And then finally, when they put some pieces around him, during the Brian Daboll years, I thought he looked decent. So, like the Daniel Jones shit from the Colts, bro. I was expecting one of these because we got these from you word every week. I know you a Daniel Jones homer. I'm gonna label you that now because it's been 4 straight weeks you've came up here and put a super chat in the chat that's about Daniel Jones. He looks like what he looked like. Is he getting maybe a little bit better? You should as your NFL career progresses. I saw Sam Darnold look a certain way when he was with the New York Jets. I saw Geno Smith look a certain way when he was with the Jets. As they became veterans in the league, they got better. They got underneath other offensive coordinators, quarterback coaches, people that are helping them clean up mechanics. As time goes by, you should get better. But, all that said, Daniel Jones was never a fucking garbage quarterback with the New York Giants. There were garbage moments for damn sure, some super lows and some high highs. But Daniel Jones showed you they can go out there and look decent, as you put it here. But shout out to Word for helping us raise the bar, man. That definitely goes a long way. We appreciate you, my dog. B-Rog said, on Apple TV, watching the All-22 is a straight-up chore. It is, man, and that's why I try to give y'all at least some compilations. I'll be putting up some compilations on the channel so you can do it from YouTube. B-Rog, get yourself a Roku, bro. Or if you have a smart TV, download the NFL app and log in with your NFL Plus subscription that way, and then you can do it from the clicker. It is a little bit easier there. But shout out to B-Rog, man. B-Rog is leaps and bounds the biggest supporter on this channel over the past 4 weeks with the New York Giants. So big shout out to B-Rog one time. I see Adam Costas popped up in the chat one time. He said they changed it up this year, speaking on the Chargers. Jim said he wants to get Herbert to the Hall of Fame, so he's going to lean into throwing it a bit more. And that's what I noticed. They have been throwing the ball a ton more this year, right? Especially last week against the Broncos. Obviously against the New York Giants, threw it a ton. But last year, as Dilla was saying, the data was more supporting that they were a team that wanted to run the ball and build off of play action. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of, progress throughout the year and if they kind of go back to Omarion Hampton. Now, listen, I was somebody that said I didn't think Omarion Hampton was worthy of a first-round draft pick. I thought he was more of a day 2 running back. Yesterday, he kind of showed me, I don't know if it was just maybe the way Tyler Nubin was in pursuit and the awful angle that he took, but the wheels, man, Omarion Hampton had some juice. And he did show that he had some breakaway speed when he was at North Carolina. He definitely had some big touchdowns like that. I wasn't convinced. I'm turning into a believer now after that game. That dude can definitely handle running back 1 workload and duties for sure. Shout out my dog, Kalen Dragon, in the building. What's going on, fam? He said Dart got to protect himself. LOL. Yeah, first start. I don't know if you played ball, Kalen, but when you get them opportunities like that in the first start, team looking like shit, you going to go out there and leave it all out there. And I commend Jaxson Dart for doing that in this game. But you're right. I mean, ultimately, to have the best opportunity for success in his career, he's going to have to protect himself for sure and just play a little bit smarter, take what's there. The 60-yard run, god damn, I wish they didn't call the flag on that one. That was an amazing one. I hope all is well, Kalen. It's been a minute, man. Haven't seen you in a while. The Illa said, yeah, authentic. Herbert's last 8 games last year, he had over 36 pass attempts 4 times, and he had another game where he had 33. How many wins in them last, you said 8? Let me know how many wins, because I do want to go back and look at it, and do a deep dive on it. Let me know. He said Herbert's pass attempts this year, 34, 27, 41, 47. And those were all in one-score games, too, going up against the Chiefs, going up against the Raiders, and going up against the Broncos. 3 tough divisional wins. So I've noticed the theme this year, but last year they seem to be a team that, especially out the gate, J.K. Dobbins does this every fucking year, I swear to God. Out the gate, looks like one of the best backs in the league, and then just kind of slowly but surely gets injured. And the productivity kind of slows down a little bit. But yeah, I'll do a deep dive on the Chargers. I'm always keeping my eyes on Justin Herbert. In my opinion, he's the most talented quarterback in the league from a arm talent perspective. A lot of people, I even saw it today, like the reason why they lost, Justin Herbert ain't good. And like, man, social media is ruining football in one way. I see my dog Richie Westcott's in the building, man. Salute to my dog. He said, slow to make changes, quick to make adjustments, especially this early in the season. Shake out some outliers. Shout out my dog, man. Nick said, give DJ a top 5 offensive line, an elite running back, and a really good wide receiver group, and he can be an average quarterback. I'll pass on that. Damn. Yo, I love my fucking chat, man. Damn, I love my chat, yo. That's so real right there. Because this is the problem with Daniel Jones. He doesn't strike you as a quarterback that's going to be able to win you a championship. And that's the whole point of having a franchise quarterback. The Giants gave him 6 years, man. I'm surprised we talk about him as much as we do. Adam Costa says, who cares about Daniel Jones? We have Jackson Dart. Yeah, fuck DJ. It's all about JD. I like that right there. Quota said, yo, did you see the hard count Jackson Dart did to get the defensive tackle to jump off sides? Sucks that it happened. Same play, Neighbors went down, but went from claps to the hard count in the NFL. LOL, I know Gruden is loving it. Yeah, I told people don't worry about that cadence, man, but is what it is, man. That's a good point right there from Quota. Vince said that Hampton is legit. Absolutely. J. Jarvicious said, we are dead last in red zone scoring at 26%, and we've had a lot of red zone trips, so I can say our red zone play calling sucks from the data and from the eye test. Okay, good to see you correct what you were talking about earlier. Now, I wasn't talking about previous games. I was talking about this game. Now, the reason why the New York Giants are dead last in the NFL right now in red zone scoring efficiency is because of how Russell Wilson came out and displayed or did not display his talents in the red zone. When you go 4 of 20 in the red zone, 2 of 10 as a team, the New York Giants have built upon that. Now, you look at the success that Jackson Dart had in the red zone in this game, and he was at 40% in reference to being at 20%. So I think that that's a step in the right direction. So when I said, tell me what you're talking about, I'm talking about this game. What were the play calls in the first 3 weeks? I'm able to ignore that at this point because we had Russell Wilson at the quarterback position, a guy that limits you as far as running from that position, even though we did try a quarterback draw with him on a series where we went 3 passing plays out the back of the fucking end zone with Russell Wilson. So I'm more talking about with Jackson Dart. What were the play calls you didn't like in this game? I came up here for 3 weeks straight after the 3 games that we lost and said, yeah, we look like shit in the red zone. I don't need convincing on our red zone failures in the first 3 games. But where does 40% lie? Let's look this up. Let's look this up real quick because I want to know where in a full season teams tend to be as far as red zone efficiency. I always tell y'all up here, too, efficiency is one thing, but maximizing your opportunities is also another. When Brian Daboll was in Buffalo, those teams were not at the top of the league in red zone efficiency. But when you looked at the red zone attempts, man, they got a rack of red zone attempts during that time. But let's go ahead and I want to look at 2025 right now, where 40% would lie, as far as red zone efficiency. And then I want to look back at 2024 and see where that lies because having a 17-game sample size is probably a little bit more accurate than looking at a 4-game sample size. So let's just hang tight here. And I know I said the stream wasn't going to be that long, but we'll get y'all up out of here in about 20, 30 minutes or something like that. Let's see. So we're looking at scoring offense. We're looking at red zone percentage. So right now, the Philadelphia Eagles still lead the NFL at 100% in the red zone. Miami, the Dolphins are behind them. That makes no fucking sense. Is that right? Yeah. The Miami Dolphins are behind them at 83%, and the Washington Commanders are behind them at 77.7%. So you have about every team that is in the top 10 right now is over 66% red zone efficiency. So the Giants' 40% would put us still down near the bottom of the league right now. They are sitting at 26.6%. Now let's look at it from a 17-game sample size to kind of get a better gauge, and let's see where that kind of lies. So you're looking at all the top 10 teams being over about 58%, and 40% would have you down near the bottom of the league. So the Giants got to find a way to clean that up and be more efficient in there. And if they're not going to be more efficient, then get more red zone attempts. So that's a good point from J. Jarvicious for sure. If you're even at 40%, you're still not near the top of the league or even near the middle of the league. So that's a good point right there. You got to give him his props on that one. And he said the eye test as well. I think the eye test, we're definitely failing for getting in the end zone. But, like, when you scheme to try to stop the New York Giants right now, and without Malik Neighbors, this is going to be dog shit moving forward. But it's really just Cam Scataboo and really just Jaxson Dart. Don't forget we came into this week. The only player on the New York Giants entire team that had a red zone touchdown was Cam Scataboo. Some of that has to be on the play calling. But also, I did guarantee that Jaxson Dart would get in the end zone and score in the red zone, and that did happen. So I think with Jaxson Dart, we should expect to see the red zone numbers and the efficiency in the red zone go up a little bit as the year progresses. Will we get near the top of the league with this personnel? Not 100% sure. Let's see what else we got. Adam wasn't a believer in Jaxson Dart? I ain't know that. I did not know that. That's good to see. Oh, J. Jarvis also said, I didn't like the quarterback draw on third down this game, but they were better this week. I can agree with you there, but with 2 pick sixes inside the 10-yard line, we should have got more than 11 points. Yeah, I agree. And I think that was probably the worst red zone sequence of plays on the day as far as results go, was after the Dexter Lawrence interception. You get down there, you're at like the 3-yard line, and you're just constantly losing yards, but also you got to look at the execution on the plays, man. Like, offensively, when you look at the line, Cam Scataboo was getting tackled in the backfield a little bit too much during that red zone sequence of plays there as well. All right. Oh, I see Mobster Music is in the building. He said, yo, son. You know that's some New York shit right there. Hey, yo, son. Shout out my dog one time in the building. Oh, Adam says, no Mets, no Nets is tripping. I said for weeks to start Dart. No Mets said, I love when we get these back and forths in the chat. No Mets said, AC, you hated the pick initially. You wanted Shador. Vince G said, I really wanted Dex to score. Yeah, man, for all them offensive linemen out there that rarely get those opportunities, you would love to see a big boy get an interception and take it into the end zone. No Met says, let's be clear. I do not troll. He says he never hated the pick. I'm going to have to check in with the receipt god and see if he's got any receipts on Adam. He said, pig scratching my head. All right, yo. So let's get off into this last Giant overreaction. It's going to be a quick one. I'm going to really just tap in with the chat here. I just kind of want to know what y'all thoughts are on a bit of a funny statement here. Let's get off into this last overreaction of the day. This one comes from Randy Marsh on Twitter. Big shout out to Randy Marsh. I hope he's not upset at me for using this statement that he had. He said, if you think Scataboo is anything more than a white guy who runs like a fullback, then you already lost. Y'all let me know if y'all think this is an overreaction, or if you agree with the statement on the screen and you think maybe Cam Scataboo is really just a glorified fullback. We talked about some numbers from guys like Mike Allstott and some other big body, run you over type of running backs like that. Mike Allstott never got over 1,000 yards himself. Cam Scataboo is coming off that career high 121 scrimmage yards last week. This week, 25 rushes for 79 yards. The yards per carry, not all that good at 3.2, but definitely efficient, and he allowed Brian Dable to rely on him. This was another thing that I forgot to mention when we were talking about coaching. The fact that Brian Dable committed to the running game the way that he did. I mean, you're talking about 10 attempts for Jaxson Dart, 25 for Cam Scataboo. You also had Devin Singletary, who had 4 rushes on the day, and he averaged 4 yards per carry. He got 28 yards on the ground. Trade value, maybe, like I talked about with Devin Singletary, definitely was a productive running back in that game against the Chargers. I liked what I saw. You know, it was a bright spot for Devin Singletary. Definitely liked what I saw out of him. I think that Scataboo didn't really look like a top 15 running back one, you know, and I don't know if he ever will look like that, but he did allow the New York Giants to lean on him, and I thought he got the job done. For me, I'm not going to overreact on this statement, but I am going to take the push on this one for today. I'd like to see what Cam Scataboo can do as we progress throughout the season and he gets more carries. If he can be a bell cow running back like this for the New York Giants, especially while Tyrone Tracy's going to be out for a couple of weeks. So for me, I'm going to take the push one time. Let me see what y'all are talking. I'll scroll back. And yeah, we'll see how you guys feel about this one, and we'll get y'all up out of here. Adam Costa says that ain't him. That was Mac, his co-host, who was more mad about the pick than he was, but it's cool. Okay. I wasn't really keeping up with Adam during that time as much, so I'm not too sure. Let's see. Brownie said, why bring race into it, though? Oh, he's talking about the statement on the screen. You know, them white boys run tough, though, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't mad at the race card on this one, man. Them white boys be running tough, bro. You know, them styles, man, they do date back to the genes, you know, a little bit. But I feel you. I feel you, Brownie. Boss Les says he's taking the under. Scat is very good. He's an all-around running back, great hands, and great routes. I like that right there. I Am Jarrell said, overreaction. Come on, yo. Maybe he's saying it's an overreaction. All right, okay. So you disagree with the statement on the screen. I like that. I like that. I'm not mad at that. My initial reaction was actually to overreact to this one. Vince says Scataboo reminds him of Mike Allstott. Yep. We talked about that in length for one of these giant overreactions about how Mike Allstott was a productive running back, but just never quite could get over the 1,000 yards. And it was a very small window of success for Mike Allstott. And maybe that's likely due to some of the punishment he was taking as a physical style runner, but we don't know. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets is not letting AC, run away with this one. He said, nah, you wanted Shador. Adam responds back, bookends, Mets, got me mixed up with Mac. K4M the Great said, this is a big overreaction. I'm not mad at that. No Met says, you don't have to say something bad about Dart to not have wanted him. They going at it. I love those back and forths in the chat. Vince G said, Cam is athletic and powerful. I worry about his longevity. I respect that right there. J. Jar Vicious says he's taking the under. Fullbacks aren't as elusive as Scataboo. Neither can they, I like how you be saying they, neither can they hit backflips like him, LOL. Now, that's a damn fact. Mike Allstott wasn't doing no backflip on no touchdown celebration. That's a damn fact right there. I like that right there. Bookend Tackle says, DJ, that's a different defensive story, LOL. Mike says it's an overreaction. Scataboo is a beast. That guy is hating. It does seem like a little bit of hate there. And I've been seeing a lot of people kind of throwing this fullback shade at Cam Scataboo a little bit there. Let's see. Will Hooper says it's an overreaction. Shout out my dog Ill Will in the building. J. Jar Vicious doubling down on the overreaction, correcting that. Nick says that he's taking the push on this one. I think he's more than that, but he definitely needs another running back to be paired with. Hopefully Tracy can figure it out so we don't have to spend another draft pick on another running back. I'm right there with you on this, Nick. Love the way you worded that. Berg said it's an overreaction. I think he has the sauce to be a good pass blocker on those downs, and is already a good receiver out of the backfield. He's a dog. Put him anywhere, and he'll figure it out. I like that. I agree with that as well. Boss Les said, Scat is our best back and can be a top running back in the league if we build this offense right. I like that to an extent. I wouldn't rule out that Cam Scataboo can't be a top running back, but his style, I think, does limit him being a top running back. Putting him in the conversation ultimately with guys like a Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, CMC is going to be very difficult for me, but we'll see. I'm hoping for the best. Vince G said, why can't Turbo Miller get a series? Was he active? I don't think he was active in this game. I'd love to see the Giants get back to some of the utilization of the screen that they did as well in the preseason with Turbo Miller, for sure. Adam Costa says, I never said I didn't want him. Matter of fact, I said pick him at 3. Okay. Shout out to my dog, Sebastian. Hey, Sebastian. The content is so fucking fire, bro. I'm blessed to be able to see you, in your rise in the content game, bro. That last video you put out, I'm just like, yo, this dude, you rivaling me now, bro. I'm looking at your shit like, man, I got to raise the fucking bar, Sebastian. That's Sony doing you well, and I see you've been studying your game. I'm sure you know your exposure tree. You've been looking at all your apertures and all your shutter speeds and all your ISOs and how to light shit. My dog been killing shit, man. Shout out Sebastian. He said Scataboo needs lightning to complement him. Kind of like Montgomery and Gibbs. That's a great comp. Is what the Giants should do. Love that. That's a great comp. Great comp right there. And I don't know if Tyrone Tracy can be that Gibbs. Love that right there. Quota said it's an overreaction. Put some respect on Scat Pack's name. He's got way more wiggle and agility to him than a fullback, and he ran well behind this shit offensive line that people preach. That's true. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets said, I never said you said anything. He was not your preferred pick at all, and it was a lot of doom and gloom over there when he was picked. Nick P said it's an overreaction. Kelvin Arzu said it's an overreaction as well. Shout out Blue Sky Watcher in the building, says my thoughts and prayers for a speedy recovery to John Mara for his cancer diagnosis. Absolutely. We all got John Mara in our thoughts. That's a fact right there. Kevin the PRF said he's taking the under. Yards per carry tells the story. Role-playing running back forced into full-time duty. I ain't mad at this one right here, Kevin. Not mad at this one right here. I'm not going to jump out on a limb like you because I got a reputation to uphold over here on Authentic and the Beard, so I'm going to take the push. But I will not say that it is not leaning towards this direction to me a little bit here. Lou Mateo said Chad and Sharp already compared him to Mike and Peyton Hillis. Overreaction. He runs like Bradshaw and trucks like Jacobs. DBs don't want to tackle him in the fourth quarter. This is true. Peyton Hillis and Mike Allstott, though, that's not what I want out of a running back in 2025. I can't front. I want longevity. Shout out my dog, NY Giants fan 48, represent for all my Bleacher Report homies over there. He said, next man up. Slay, Robertson, Hyatt, Lil Jordan, step up time with neighbors out. That's very true. The Illa said, yeah, I want to see what Scat looks like about halfway through the season after all of the punishment. Very true. Yeah, we want to find out, is he an injury concern as well? That's a good point by the Illa. B-Rog said he's taking the push. He looked like a running back 2/1 for a few games. Let's see some more. I like that right there. Adam taking the under one time. Nick said, quote, that's how a white man runs a football, unquote. Stone Cold Steve Austin. I got to give you one of these for that, right? The glass breaking? Yeah, you already know what it is. Shout out my dog Nick in the building one time. Adam Costa said he reminds me of Bradshaw. He does a little bit, and they wear the same number, but he does remind me of Bradshaw. Maybe a little bit less top-end speed, but, yeah, they do run very similar. J.J.R. Vicious said, meant to say an overreaction. I got you on that. Yup. Junior Plays is in the building. What's going on, Junior? He said he's taking the push. I don't think he's an every down back, but definitely a tough running back. I got to see what he does by the end of the season. I'm right there with you. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets said it's an overreaction. Shout out to Scat because he's a giant, but I don't see running back one. Welvin's in the building said overreaction, but ideally we get a burner of a running back to pair with him. Good one. Rob's giving the overreaction as well. Adam Costa says Allstott was a fullback, and they made him a runner. That's true, man. Like, Allstott was like a hybrid. He was definitely a fullback, and then they started giving him carries at the fullback position, on goal line instances and short yardage, and then he ultimately turned into a every down type of running back. But there is a difference in Cam Scataboo when you add that pass-catching ability, and granted, that was a different era of the NFL that Mike Allstott succeeded in, but, yeah, I like what Adam is putting down here. Luis says overreaction. Hampton got a little Omarion in his game. I guess he's saying Scat maybe has a little bit of Omarion in his game. Barry N is in the building, says Scataboo better chill with those backflips with the knees, just saying. Yeah, that's that young boy shit. You already know. Marlowe said it's an overreaction. Scat is a gamer. Some dudes have it. He might not be a Pro Bowler, but he is good and catches out of the backfield. I like that. I like this right here from Adam as well. That's a fact. Shout out to Benno's World. I hope I'm saying that right. That's a new face in the building. He said it's an overreaction. Scat is a pure hybrid. He's both a running back and fullback, makes him more dangerous. I like this take right here, but I wouldn't call him a pure hybrid because a pure hybrid is more like a Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey. Those, to me, are the pure hybrid running backs that were kind of losing their favor in the NFL for a little while. But I like how you flip this here. He is a hybrid for sure, but he's a hybrid fullback / running back. I like that right there. That's dope. JDJ said it's an overreaction. Cam is a great compliment back to a more quicker / scat back or a 1-2 punch backfield, but I don't want him taking the ball 25 times a game or he won't be able to play all 17 plays or all 17 games is what I think he meant there. Good point. Izzy said the defensive line pass rush win rate of 68% on Sunday, the highest since 2017. Man, yeah, I saw that stat running around. I was like, golly. Great thing to hang our hats on as New York Giants fan. You got to love it, man. I see Apaka Nips now is laughing at Nick. I want to make sure I got that Nick statement. Oh, I probably did get it because there was a couple back up. Shout out Apaka Nips now in the building one time. Let's see. Bookend said, look up football player. You will see a picture of Scataboo. I like that. Mobster Music said he's taking the under. Scat Pack 44. Keep going. So I guess you might be saying this is an overreaction, though. Nick said Devin Singletary looked a lot better than I thought he would. He didn't light up the box score, but I thought it would be all 1 to 2 yard runs. Yeah, he did a great job in this game on Sunday. And with Tyrone Tracy out, expect that workload in the running back room to be a little bit more evenly distributed now, I feel like. 25 is a lot for Scat. I don't think we get him there consistently. Let's see what else we got here. Chowski says Chris Long compared Scat to Frank Gore on his pod. I ain't mad at that either. Frank Gore didn't have the top end speed either. And Scat might be, just as tough. That's very true. The Illa said, I've said Scat is A.J. Dillon as a runner. Dillon's best season was in 2021. He put up 803 yards, and he was trucking players left and right that year. He averaged 4.3 yards per carry that season. What does A.J. do now? Back up Saquon Barkley and Will Shipley. Stephen R. said, overreaction, Cam plus Pacheco. Okay, I like that right there. Shout out Blue Sky Watcher with the 199 super chat one time. We definitely appreciate that, my G. He said he trucks like Jacobs. Yeah, but Jacobs was 6'4", 260, not 6 foot 218. Put me down for an anytime concussion with a full workload. Oh, that's from my bad. I'm reading Kevin the PRF right under it. So Blue Sky Watcher said, me and C-Rob excited to find you after a Giants win. That'll be what's up, man. Absolutely. I've been thinking about not going up there to see a game. B-Rog offered me some tickets for that San Francisco 49ers game. With Jaxson Dart at the quarterback position, I might renege on that. Might have to reach back out to B-Rog one time. This was the one I was reading. And shout out to Blue Sky Watch for helping us raise the bar. This was the one I was looking at from Kevin the PRF, which is a really good point because Jacobs was a much more taller, bigger running back, different style. They run similar, but from a different build. I like that right there. Stephen R. said, I feel like Giants fans aren't talking enough about how Burns is money well spent. Most never give props when it's good, but the loudest when players play bad. I take it you coming in late here because we gave Brian Burns big props, and this is what I was asking for last year. I don't know if you were around, Stephen Arts, when I was talking about, look, you paying a guy $28 million a year, he needs to be better than what we're seeing at the beginning of 2024. 2025 version of Brian Burns is a man on fire. Look, everybody should be talking about Brian Burns. And, yeah, money well spent so far. The one discrepancy is when the money was spent. But listen, you know, there's no timeline for when you can trade for players, and when you get a good player like that, it's cool. Yeah, I think it is money well spent. And Ars said he was late. Yeah, at the top of the stream, we talked about it. And y'all know I was somebody that was critical of Brian Burns because you're paying him $28 million. He can't be average. He's got to be a dog. And 2024, that man is absolutely in, Rottweiler, Pitbull dog mode. I love it. I love it. So, yeah, looks like this one was the one that probably split the room the most. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Cam Scataboo can do with some more touches in the future, and we'll see. You know, I took the push on this. A lot of people deem this one as an overreaction right off the bat. That might be the Giants fandom in you guys, but we shall see. I like the statement from Kevin the PRF, which is living in reality, and I think, he said a lot of that stuff because he's a Commanders fan, and he can view it with a very non-biased lens. It's definitely not looking at it through rose-colored glasses that are, tinted a little bit red and blue. So shout out to y'all for all y'all comments today on these Giant overreactions. Yeah, man. It's good to have a win, man. Today was a nice chill vibe on the stream because the Giants got the damn W against a team that a lot of people picked them to lose against. So I'm looking forward to seeing the evolution and the maturation of Jaxson Dart moving forward, and just seeing how Brian Dable, now that he has one game under his belt with Jaxson Dart, how do we go back to the drawing board and just correct some of the mistakes and come out against the New Orleans Saints here on Sunday and have a better performance than we saw on Sunday against the Chargers, offensively especially. So we shall see. We got to have the defense go out there and continue to, play at that level and even raise the bar there. Let's see the defense get better. I want to see Abdul Carter get his first sack in front of the MetLife fans out there at our stadium. Maybe he gets it on the road against the Saints this week. He was damn close. It ended up being like a intentional grounding, and they didn't give him the sack on it, which they should have. If a quarterback has to do an intentional grounding to avoid a sack, they should have gave my dog his first sack on the season. But it is what it is. I see Dante talking about Bijan Robinson is the hybrid number one. Yeah, man, he is truly I'm going to still say Saquon is the best hybrid, but Bijan Robinson out the backfield he's just that damn good. And I wouldn't give you much of an argument here. CMC is still doing damage as well too, man. CMC, it was Bijan Robinson and CMC were the only running backs that had over 100 scrimmage yards in the first 3 weeks of the 2025 NFL season. So, yeah, I definitely feel your sentiment on that. And Vince said Burns looked awesome yesterday. He definitely did. Mm-hmm. They better beat the Saints and not have a letdown. I'm right there with you, bro. That's a game that we need to go out there, up the ante, win that game. Stephen R. said Kayvon is another one, too. Hopefully it's not just a contract year thing. Stephen R. says look great. I said Stephen R. Kayvon Thibodeau has looked great, Stephen R. Big facts. But, okay, yeah. And, yo, everybody go check out Dante, man. East Coast Gridiron just put out a video. If you got the link, throw it in the chat before we close out here, bro. I'll try to buffer some time here for you. The Illa says all the hype Carter had in the offseason, he should have had at least 9 sacks by now. I'm just talking smack and being sarcastic to a point. I feel you on that. And he's been playing really good as well. Brian Burns is just man on fire, bro. Man on fire. J. Jar Vicious said Tyrone Tracy can be a hybrid running back with his former wide receiver skills. Yeah, I won't rule it out. Do I expect it? Not necessarily. Luis R. said Burns really stepped up his game, man. He did. And that's all I was asking for last year. Me and Carl Banks had a conversation publicly on Twitter where, I was just saying that all these pressures got to turn into more sacks, and I want to see the pressure rate go up. I can't have Brian Burns looking like a clone of Kayvon Thibodeau from last year. I need him to be better than Kayvon Thibodeau if we're going to be paying him $28 million. Carl Banks retweeted that tweet, and a lot of Giants fans decided to kind of attack me on that, like, oh, you can't have anything good in New York and da-da-da-da. And I'm just like, look, I'm not saying Brian Burns was playing bad in 2024. I just want to see him play like a top 5 edge rusher in the league if we're going to pay him $28 million a year. He's now doing that. Dante said, I just got done watching the All-22 all through and getting the clips. We'll upload in about an hour. So y'all keep y'all eyes peeled. Go over there to East Coast Gridiron. Subscribe. Does fantastic work. And check out Dante's breakdown. I'm looking forward to definitely checking that out as well. Vince G said, my new favorite channel. Let's up the likes. And y'all know my thing about the likes. I don't encourage anybody to do the likes. If y'all want to hit the like button and you like the content, do your thing. If you want to subscribe and you like the content we're putting down over here on Authentic in the Beard, do your thing. But at the end of the day, and I make it a point to say this, I enjoy having this little small corner of the internet called Authentic in the Beard. Like, it's cool as shit to be able to come here and know all the names that I'm seeing in the chat, from Luis, who I just had to pay $50 from losing a bet this past week, to Dante on East Coast Gridiron, who I've already had a chance to chop it up with. And I made a promise that we were going to bring him in on the channel within the next 2 weeks. So that's something, Dante, I'm going to reach out to you in the next couple of days. If you don't hear from me in the next couple of days, hit me up on Twitter in the DM, and we'll try to get you on this week, or at latest, let's do it next week. And I just enjoy having all these folks, from Rob, who I met over on Bleacher Report, people that I know that I can see in the chat, the Illa, who I just constantly look at his channel and look at a lot of his videos. Steven Art's been here for a long time. Vince been here for a long time. Elegante in the building been here for a long time. So I enjoy that. So, when people watch this content, and for those y'all watching it back, and you a new viewer here, if you like the vibes, hit the subscribe button. If not, we good. It's all good. Like, we got like 6,000 some odd people here to support this channel, and man, I would have never thought in a million years that it would have been like this. So is what it is at this point, man. Salute to all of y'all that continue to support this content, because y'all are the ones that we cater the content to. I see, let me see, is this Tom or Thom? Matt Chris is in the building. He said, good stuff as usual. Salute to you, bro. I appreciate you rocking out with us. I am Jarrell said, I picked Link number 1 in the draft. Pray for me. I do remember that, bro. I'm praying for you. I'm definitely praying for you. But again, man, y'all, go show some support to East Coast Gridiron and Dante over there, man. They're doing great things. Where we at? About 2 hours and a half. That's great for a victory Monday here on a Giant Overreaction. Salute to all of y'all that helped us out today. Let me get some biceps in the chat before we get up out of here. Brownie says, yo, Authentic. By the way, need to ask, how do we catch you post-game on Bleacher Report? I couldn't find it. So they roll them out to the Giants community, but the Bleacher Report app is just bad right now. It's in a really bad place right now. They tried to completely revamp an app that has been the same for about 20 years. And now it's just been a challenge for the fans to try to find us. So what I suggest you do is go into the Bleacher Report app, and the first thing you do is search for the New York Giants and hit the follow button on the New York Giants to subscribe to the team, because they will roll out notifications for Bleacher Report. Secondly, search my name in the content creator section. It's now divided up into like 4 or 5 tabs. Find the creator tab and search Authentic the way I spell it. You'll find my page. It might even look like a whole fugazi-ass page because they haven't even updated the profiles. All kind of stuff's going on over there. Hit the follow button there. And then when the games are over, I go live immediately after the game. Sometimes while the game is finishing up. Like if the game is already in, you know, the conclusion is already there, but they're just kind of winding out the clock, I'll go live a little bit early. But just keep your eyes on that and then just follow me. And then worst case, just go to my page. If you can't find it when you come into the app, just search Authentic. You'll already have been following me. Go to my page. It'll show you all my existing streams and all my upcoming streams. Go to the upcoming streams and it should be there. It's been tough on Bleacher Report, y'all. Like I love their efforts over there and what they're trying to do, and they pay me very well to go up there and do streams, like very fucking well. And I'm blessed to be able to do that. A lot of the foundation that we built here is why that happened. But I just prefer the platform over here on YouTube because I can maneuver it how I want to with the graphics, the comments, the super chats. It's just all more easier for me to navigate. So we'll see, man. We'll see. But it's been tough for a lot of people to find me on Bleacher Report. But those streams have been very packed. They've been very packed. A couple of hundred in there every time. Kevin the PRF said, Carl Banks reposted a criticism. Was that on the dark web? Yeah, I mean, he disagreed with me. That's why he posted it. Shout out my dog, Blue Sky Watcher in the building one time. This will be the last one with the $4.99 super chat. He says, nice, we can all get together and chop it up about good football. Just learned how to send you more. Just finished a double shift with them nurse dollars. Shout out Blue Sky Watcher, man. We appreciate you helping us raise the bar over here at Authentic in the Beard. It's my first time really seeing Blue Sky Watcher in the building. And yeah, welcome to the family. If you haven't been tuning into some of these streams, we've been over here since 2019 doing these streams. And we've been active 4 days a week. We did all the way from 2019 all the way through 2024. This year, we've been doing it a little bit differently, guaranteeing about 3 a week. But yeah, we've been extremely active and glad you got a chance to find the channel, and salute to you. Appreciate you rocking out. I like the logo on that, man, with the peace sign vibes. Salute to you, my dog, and thank you for helping us raise the bar. And yeah, we got the biceps in the chat. Y'all know what it is. We're going to end the stream right there, man. Salute to y'all. We appreciate y'all, man, for helping us be able to raise the bar over here on Authentic in the Beard. You know, tuning into these streams that we do probably way too many times a week, but y'all are always here, always supporting what we do, spreading the word about what we do over here on Authentic in the Beard. So I can't thank y'all enough for that. But y'all know how we end every stream over here on AATB. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. And a life without dreams is a life in black and white. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT and New York legend, Combat Jack himself. And that is a wrap. And as I said on Bleacher Report before I rounded out that stream yesterday night, that, what you saw on Sunday, that was Technicolor and surround sound by the New York Giants. And all we can do is hope moving forward that Brian Daboll can continue to put this team in position to win and continue to, you know, aid the development of our rookie, future franchise quarterback in Jaxson Dart. But that's a great way to start it out, man. Jaxson Dart, 1 for 1. He's 1-0 right now, man. That's a beautiful thing. And considering that Cam Ward was my quarterback 1 to start the process of prospects, and Cam still ain't got his W. I don't know if y'all saw Cam Ward went out there and he said, "We ass." And he's accountable for it. He said, me included. But to see Jaxson Dart get his first dub before Cam Ward, and Cam Ward having 4 or 3 more games to do it, it's a beautiful thing to hang your hats on, man. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all Victory Monday. Enjoy the rest of your Victory Week. Work is going to be a breeze this week, y'all. I'll try to go live either tomorrow or the day after before we get to the preview show that we do on Thursday, which will be right around this time. We're trying to hover around that 1 p.m., 3 p.m. window, so keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll try to get the streams up as early as we can so you can see those, and hopefully you can prepare for the rest of your day to be able to check us out over here and continue to support us. But y'all enjoy it, man. Beautiful, beautiful Victory Monday for the New York Giants. I will catch y'all on the flip side. Man, go eat good, live good, drink good, smoke good, do all of that stuff. Keep Malik Neighbors and John Mayer in y'all prayers, and I'll catch y'all on the next stream. Y'all be easy. Peace out, y'all.